Welcome to my channel. Here, I don't just speak, but I invite you to think. Throughout my videos, I've questioned the deepest held beliefs, from philosophy, the dynamics of religion and faith, to personal identity. I ventured into the controversial because I know that only in honest, critical confrontation do we grow. My voice is a search for truth, unafraid of what is difficult. If you join this community today, you don't just watch, but you engage. Together, we open the door to a courageous dialogue, one that transforms us. Subscribe, share, and let's keep questioning, growing, and seeking truth together. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I hope you like this really cool little graphic that Sam made for the channel. I'm so excited about this. This is really neat looking. The digital media that I just played, Sam had also made and donated to the show. So I really appreciate him. That's very kind of him to take time out of his day to create such great digital media to help the channel look a little bit more professional. And his talent, I mean, I'll just do this again here for you. Isn't that great? It's always nice to share other people's talents and to share your talent with other people and to just donate it without even being asked. I mean, that just shows what a kind person that Sam is. The music that I play at the end of the show was actually written by a deconverted man, and he also just donated that to the channel. So that for all of my shortcomings in trying to make this channel what it is, the only reason it looks as technically, visceral and exciting and these little additions and stuff is because of other people's generosity. And I really appreciate that. That as not just with the digital stuff and the visual aids and things like that, but the actual content, the conversations, we've had some amazing conversations on this channel. And the reason that happens is because of the people who join the panels and because of the guests that I bring onto the show. It's really not for anything that I'm doing personally, to be honest with you. I offer very little to the actual what the channel is. The channel is really what it is because of you. Excuse me. Still fighting this chest thing, is congestion. It's very frustrating. But we'll make it to the show today. Just a couple of quick updates. We had a really good debate on Sarah's channel on the Raging Tomato. I did dual stream that, so if you haven't caught that yet, it's available to watch on my channel. It's on objective morality, morality without God. That was a tough debate because, first of all, when Sarah reached out to me to ask if I wanted to do the debate, and I said, yes, I'd love to. It wasn't until after I had already agreed to do the debate that she then informed me later that it was going to be a 2v2, and I had no idea. And she asked if I wanted her to find me a partner or if I wanted to find my own partner. And I says, no, let me get my own partner. So I reached out to Nobody on Fire. For those of you who might know who Nobody on Fire is, he is amazing, especially when it comes to arguing for objective morality. He uses Worth's model. And while I don't necessarily use that same model, as you know, I combine a couple of different models, right? I combine virtue, ethics, and natural law, as well as argument from reason. But I think the two of us, we would have made a very strong team. Unfortunately, Nobody on Fire had some things come up very last minute. And so Sarah reached out to me the day before the debate to let me know that Nobody on Fire had canceled. And instead of asking me if I wanted to find a different partner, she just told me that she had already decided, like basically replaced him with somebody else. And I love Sarah to death. I really do appreciate the fact that she gave me the opportunity to do the debate on her channel. But I would have preferred to find my own partner because I actually know a few people who are actually PhD scholars that argue for objective morality that would have been willing to be on my team. And so I could have put together a pretty strong team. Unfortunately, the person that she chose, he goes by the name Bones. He did a great job, and he's a really smart young man. And I'm very grateful that he accepted the offer, because for him, getting a call last minute, hey, by the way, will you do this debate? The problem is he doesn't believe in objective morality. So he had to research what moral realism even was and then try to build an argument for a position that he doesn't even hold himself. And unfortunately, during the debate, there's at least 3 different times where he basically kind of conceded to the opponent's position because he was being very honest and not thinking about what he was doing as far as the debate goes, and realizing that just by conceding to the other person's point of view because you don't necessarily hold in the moral realist view isn't really helping my my argument for our team here. But again, I'm not into the debates for the performative aspect. I'm about exchanging information. And I think the debate overall went really well, but I was really handicapped because of not having a partner that I knew anything about, having a partner who didn't actually hold the position we were debating for, and a few other different things that kind of were going on there. But with all of that being said, I feel like it was a really well fought debate. I think it would be difficult to choose a winner if you're looking at it objectively. Now, if you have your own presupposition going into the debate, you're obviously going to say, well, this guy won or that guy won. But if you were just kind of on the fence about moral realism, morality without God, and things of this nature, I don't know if it would be very easy to pick a winner, because it was a very well fought debate. The one thing I will say where I'm fairly confident that it was at least even if we didn't win the debate is because my opponents, they tried to hide behind hard solipsism, which, if you're going to try to hide behind hard solipsism in a debate about morality, you're already basically conceding the debate, in my opinion, because you could hide behind hard solipsism for any position, no matter what your position or what the topic is. Anybody could say hard solipsism and then throw their hands up, say, well, we can't know, we're just brains in a vat. So I thought that was pretty weak. The other thing they tried to do is deny logic. And the denial of logic was another concession I felt like they were making at the beginning of the whole thing, because it's true that there are numerous forms of logic, like quantum logic, fuzzy logic, so on and so forth, right? But relative logic is the argument that you're making when you talk about contradiction, the law of non-contradiction, the law of identity, so on and so forth. And so when you just hand wave away logic and pretend it doesn't exist, then they were also trying to maybe push for a little bit of anti-realism. But there were so many different aspects that these guys were coming from that they never really established a position about anything. They were just basically throwing everything at the wall to see what would stick. And they're really smart guys, our opponents were, and they did a really good job of piling a lot of objections on, but I don't think they actually landed any of their talking points, in my opinion. But it was a good debate nonetheless. So check it out if you want to. We have a really interesting show coming up today for you, first of all. We're really excited to bring today's guest. But for next Sunday, I've got Nathaniel, who is a Catholic, an Orthodox Catholic, I think, maybe a Roman Catholic, and then Khalid, who's a Muslim. I've talked to both of these people at different points on this channel, and I've also been on their channels before. We've had great conversations, very polite. Love these two gentlemen. But we have some fundamental disagreements on what we call worldview, obviously. And I'll be talking to both of them about happiness. So I'll be coming from the skeptic position. Then we have the Muslim position and the Catholic position. So that should be a really interesting conversation next week. And then I've got Darklight coming on the following week. And for those of you who don't know Dane, really interesting young man. He's going to be trying to explain his he calls it a theology. It sounds more like deism to me than theism, but whatever it is, he can call it whatever he wants. It's his idea. But whatever his model is for religion, but he's also I don't know if he considered himself to be a monist or a non-dualist or an idealist, but we're going to get into some of that because I think there are actually fundamental problems with this particular arguments, and it depends on what angle he's coming from, idealism, non-dualism, monism, because there are differences in these, although they're subtle. But I do think that consciousness being fundamental was what a lot of this hinges on. I think there are some problems with trying to land that argument. So I'll be looking forward to getting to that with Dane next on the following week. I have Dr. Carrier. Oh yes, I have Dr. Carrier and Dr. Perez coming midweek. Midweek next week. We're going to be talking about morality and AI. That should be a really good show. A couple of PhD scholars who are really well versed on the topic of morality. As you know, Dr. Carrier has peer-reviewed work on the subject. I had a great conversation with Dr. Perez. I need to get that linked over to my channel so you guys can catch that conversation. But he invited me to have a conversation with him about objective morality from a secular view. And so the three of us are going to get together and kind of brainstorm about how morality and AI can work together, right? Then at the end of the month, I don't know why I do this to myself, but I've agreed to one last formal debate with Jill. We're going to be debating, does the Bible condone slavery? So that'll be probably held on Robin's channel. And as you know, Robin is a huge supporter of this channel. I'm a huge supporter of Robin's channel. Not Robin, who's my guest today, but I'm talking about Robin Webster. She's got a great channel. I always link her channel in the description of every video I do. I'm a big supporter of what she's putting out there. She's feeling a little under the weather, by the way, so please do send her your kind thoughts and kind regards. Check in on her if you know her personally. Make sure she's doing okay. But at any rate, Robin is she's agreed to, once again, try to moderate a debate between myself and Jill. This will be specifically on biblical slavery. That'll be at the end of the month. We've got a few other things already scheduled for next month. We won't get into that now. The channel's growing. I can't believe that we're probably going to pass 350 subscribers within our first year. I changed my job title. So instead of working as the general manager, I've taken a consulting position, paid consultant and independent, which frees me up to do some independent consulting work as well on the side. And that should cut back some of my hours, which would hopefully will allow me to start putting a little bit more time into the channel. I'd like to start putting out a little bit more content. I did pretty good this month with some extra content between all the debates that I was in. And so I'd like to start putting out maybe some shorter videos, just talking about some of the stuff that we come across, some of these topics that get raised. There will be a debate coming up about identity and trans rights. I'll be part of that. And there's some conversations to be had around that. So I'm going to try to get a little bit more content out for the channel. I've had people reach out to me and say they would like it if I could do some shorter videos, like 10 to 20 minute kind of videos. And I would like to do that. There's a lot of stuff that we touch on that I'd like to talk about. So I'm going to try to make an effort over the next month or two to get my schedule worked around so that I can put a little bit more time into the channel. But even with how little time I am able to do this once a week, I'm surprised the channel is growing as fast as it is. It will probably be around 30,000 views, at or above 350 subscribers in the first year. And that's a tremendous amount of growth for how little we actually get together. So really excited about all that. Okay. Starting to lose my voice. So fortunately, Robin's going to do more talking than I am probably today, but we're going to get together with our guests. In fact, let me bring Robin up on stage here so we know who I'm talking about. Okay, so Robin is a friend of mine who I met, a brother that I met through DNW's channel, and he's got some really interesting views on what he calls his social prosperity charter. And we're going to get into a little bit of what that is. But before we do that, let Robin introduce himself really quickly, and then we'll just start getting right into it. Robin, why don't you tell people who you are, where they can find you if you've got a channel or Substack or whatever it is, and then we'll get into some of the questions.
Yeah, my name is Robin Wollstonheim. I was born in the UK. I'm currently back living in the UK in London, but we left the UK when I was 10, went to live in Netherlands. So from 10 until I finished college, I was in the Netherlands. So I consider myself to be more European than I do typical English anyway. And I actually got back to the UK 3 years ago. It was supposed to be a holiday over the Christmas. But then my dad got really, really sick. He's got chronic pulmonary disease. So he's got half of his lung capacity, and he ended up in hospital in a coma. So I had to rethink what it was that I was doing. I wanted to stick around for my dad. I got into a kind of a massive, big discussion with the British government. So I learned a lot about being a grown-up in the UK again, because I hadn't really been a grown-up in the UK. And I didn't like it. I eventually, after a long fight, got permission to look after my dad. And the British government literally pays me £10 a day, which is the equivalent of $10. It's nothing to be a full-time carer of my dad. Because if I'm not doing it, they would have to do it, and it would cost the state a hell of a lot more money. So I found myself on call 24/7, but my dad doesn't need things 24/7, but then he needs the cup of tea, he needs to get this, he needs to get that, and then he has a COPD attack, and then it's all panics, and then it's grab medications and phone ambulance. But I found that I had a lot of downtime, and I needed to find myself a new hobby. So I started writing. I started complaining about the things that I didn't like about being back in Britain. And I started comparing them to the life that I had before I came to Britain. And I was living off grid in an old second-hand truck with a broken motor that didn't work, so it couldn't drive anywhere. But it did have a wonderful bedroom, kitchen space, living room space. It was a wonderful living space. It was in the middle of the mountains of Spain, in South Spain, in Andalusia. And I loved it. And I went from there to living back in London, and I don't love it. I love being close to my family. I don't love being back in the civilized world. Was that a good introduction?
That is a great introduction, and I want to just give I was just getting ready to type it. In fact, I will still right now. I want to say hello to a very special sister, Daniela. I hope I'm not embarrassing you by saying this in front of everybody. It's so nice to see you stop by. It's so nice to have you here. This is a young lady who I also met on DNW's channel. I met a lot of good people on that channel. And while I do things differently than DNW does, and there's some things that go on there that I don't agree with, I do appreciate that I've met so many wonderful people, through that Finding Gnosis channel, Jack Talcott's channel as well. And Danielle is one of the people. So Danielle, it's so nice to have you here, sister, as always. Okay, Robin. So you mentioned you've started writing. So what we're here to talk about is this S.P.E.C. Do you want to? Let me bring up this first slide here. Actually, let's get things kicked off. There we go. So tell us what this is all about. What is S.P.E.C. and why are you talking about billionaires here?
Okay, this first slide is an extremely important slide because whenever I have discussed my personal project before, which I call the Social Prosperity Charter, everybody goes, well, it sounds like a convoluted form of communism. And I'd just like to say, I am not a communist. I've never lived under a communist system. I have no communist heroes. I detest Karl Marx. The first reason I detest Karl Marx is because most people don't know that he started off in Spain during the Civil War, and he was a part of the anarchist movement. And when the anarchist movement began to fail, he jumped ship to the communist movement. And then later on, he jumped ship again. I'm not saying that people can change their opinion. I mean, you can start off being of one political persuasion when you're young and change. But Karl Marx, he literally milked people for all he could get until he came up with modern socialism. And I live under modern socialism in the UK, where we're called a monarchist socialism or something like that. And I hate it. I hate communists. I hate socialism. It doesn't work for me. So this is 10 reasons that I believe that billionaires would love my SPEC program. And I don't know if you guys can read it. You might have small screens, so I'm going to read it out for you loud. So reason number 1, the rich, they get to stay rich. If you're a billionaire, you will still be a billionaire the day after you entered into my SPEC system. Nothing would change. Number 2, they gain an immediate entry into an infinite 5% APR loop. And a 5% APR loop is if you invest in a project within the local community, that local community will pay you 5% on top of your principal, because you invested in it. Now, I know that billionaires have got a lot of money, it's just laying around. Why not leave it in my system so that we can build houses for people, create better businesses, just leave it there. And then at the end of the year, whatever you left, we'll give you 5% on top of it for investing back into us. Perfect. They get to save the planet for absolutely free and look good doing it. If they just give all of their investment capital to me, I will make sure that people like real planetary people that want to protect planet and local. I make sure that that money would go to them so that we could do a good job at cleaning up our environment. So they'd be saving the planet. They wouldn't even need to think about it. 4, the billionaires. Oh, all other charity, because SPEC is not a charity. If you invest money in SPEC gives you 5%. So it's not. They can stop giving money to all of those other charities because it doesn't work, and they won't need the tax breaks. You don't need tax breaks within my system. So they could save billions on investing in charity. Number 5, they gain total safety. Now, if investments are predictable, safe, they're not based on chaos thinking, panic thinking, they're literally investing in what your community is going to need within the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Those are pretty safe bet investments. And okay, you might only get 5% return, but 5% and a nice place to live. Number 6, once again, yeah, like I said, total safety. As SPEC grows, their investment opportunities grow. As more and more people would join my proposed private club system for gathering money to invest in better things, their investment opportunities would increase with the scale of the membership of SPEC. Number 7, they would become universally loved. Now, nobody loves billionaires at the moment. They think that they're selfish. They think that they have enough money to live 100 lifetimes. And they normally think that the people and things that they invest in aren't as good as they could be. Now, under SPEC, they would be loved because a SPEC billionaire is a billionaire that helps his local community. He literally reinvests in the people that live closest to him or her. Number 8, they get continual dividends. Now, they can actually have a pension pot, which they can invest in through the whole of their life, which also gets 5% interest paid out. And then when they finally go, they can pass those investments on to their children. It's absolutely perfect. Even better for the billionaires. Second, when new communities come into the project because they see that it's working, it's fair, it's a community that invests in itself, it makes the right choices, it's got a cleaner environment. At that moment, other places are going to want to come in, and their infrastructure is going to need to be upgraded, updated, cleaned, blah. It's an investment opportunity once again. So as more and more people, as the system grows, so does the pool of money grow that the system has available to do brilliant things. And 10, and lastly, they will have finally done something smart with their money. Because I struggle to find billionaires that have done anything that I consider worth writing home about lately. So that's it. So good for billionaires, and definitely not communism.
All right, so I've got a couple questions here. And so as far as the communism thing goes, I was talking to somebody the other day, a few weeks ago now, about, and in fact, I played it on my channel, that conversation for anybody who might be interested. But we talked about politics, and the person was talking about Trump and America, and is Trump great, and is America great, and all this other stuff. And personally, I don't think Trump is great. I think Trump is highly problematic. And while as an American, there are a lot of things I'm very proud of for what this country has done, both locally and internationally. However, statistically speaking, America is like mid-tier to upper mid-tier in many, many categories. In fact, even lower mid-tier in some categories, like in crime. When you start to look at crime rates, reoffense, they call it recidivity. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. I've had this this lingering, I don't know what's going on, what cold or some kind of throat issue. I hope I make it through the show today. But at any rate, so America is not a top performer in very many things. Our GDP is the one area where we're in like the top 10 in most certain statistics is GDP. But we're not even at the top. We're like number 8 or 7th in the world with GDP. So when we talk about America versus communism or socialism, I'm not a communist or socialist per se. I think my position is that the best system would be a balance between a free market leaning socialist is what I would think, because free market drives competition, and competition drives down prices and drives up quality. And because of that, I think free market can be very important. And also, I think that free market respects people's autonomy. Really, that's really important to me. Personal autonomy is really important to me, especially when it comes to business ethics. However, I am also a big supporter of socialist policies such as free healthcare, free education, community centers, housing,
Yeah,
housing
but we have
cap
to
on housing.
hold back on the word free. Free. We need to use the free at the point of entry. Uh, so that, because it's not free, people have to invest in it, working it. People need to go to school. They need to get qualification. Nothing in this world is free. But like, I live in the UK, and the NHS is free at the point of entry.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter if I become registered on the NHS and I break my leg the very same day, boom, I get treatment, my leg gets fixed, it's all done. But the average British worker pays more for his healthcare or her healthcare than does the average Dutch or German. And I've lived in both Holland and Germany, and their healthcare systems, I believe, are better than the one they have currently in the UK. So
There are different models as to how that can be accomplished. And so a lot of times some like Norway, for example, will have low cost as opposed to free, and they have cap limits on on premiums and things of this nature. So there are different ways you could do it. But the point I'm getting at here is that I think this balance between socialism and capitalism is really where we want to be.
yes,
The issue I have is that when people criticize communism or socialism, my understanding about history and economics is not one of my strong suits, and neither is politics, right? So I could be completely mistaken. But according to my understanding, we do not have an example of a communist system or a socialist system that has been free of corruption. So
there is one.
that to me seems to
There
be
is
the
one single one. There is one single one. The Yangtze in China, and those people are, as a collective, the richest people in the world.
now. I'm sorry. Did you say that USA and China are socialist and free of corruption?
No, socialism, communism. So there is one communist village in China, and it's completely communist. They joined with the big Mao Red Book thing, do or die, and because they don't have corruption, every single person in that village, as a collective, they all own a car, they all own 2 garages, they all own their own home, they all own shares in their local business company. They are literally the richest people in the world collectively. All of them are millionaires. Even the janitors are millionaire. Uh,
So we can
it
see.
has some limitations, lots of limitations, but it proves that the communist model without corruption can work. Now, the problem with places like Yugoslavia, China, Russia, those places were never really communist. They used communism to keep the people, making them rich.
Mhm.
It's yeah. So I defended real communism. I just don't think that anybody is really motivated to have, except for that one little village. And even then, like I said, it comes with severe restrictions. You can't sell property, for example. If you want to leave that village, you have to leave for life. You're never allowed to come back, and you have to accept the buyout that that village is willing to give you for your property, because it's never really yours. It's the community's property. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so it's wonderful as long as you're there and are willing to work 6 days a week, 12 days an hour. But as soon as you're not, then that's it. You get turfed out, and you have to return half of everything you have, if it's not more.
Interesting. So I don't know because I've never heard this before, so I can't just on the fly make any comments. But it seems to me, so the argument that I would make is that if we could look at these models free of corruption, and I haven't looked at the example that you're talking about, but I think that in principle, if we actually look at the principle of these three different markets, capitalism itself, it becomes laissez-faire capitalism. And I believe that laissez-faire capitalism is actually set up to open the door for and incentivize predation, right? And monopolies. And I think that it would not take very long for monopolies to establish, at which point small businesses would have no chance in most markets if capitalism were just left unfettered, right? So I don't think that capitalism itself offers a solution. Communism and socialism, I'm not entirely sure the differences, to be honest with you, between what is difference between communism and socialism. I don't even actually know.
Well, I would say that socialism is actually practiced in the world today and it functions reasonably well, whereas communism, apart from that one single example, has never actually worked ever. It's always been a mafia overlord bullying everybody else into making them richer, as opposed to making a community, a nation, a state richer. It's never worked like that. It's never actually done what it says on the tin. Whereas socialism, I live in a socialist country, and yes, if I break my arm, I can get it fixed. If I say that I feel mentally unwell, I can get 4 sessions with a professional that probably won't do me very much good. So socialism has its benefits, but both socialism and capitalism are very, very easily corruptible, um, and I'm living proof of it. And both of them waste enormous amounts of money for not providing the service to the people that they say that they will.
So with the, by the way, it's nice to see people stopping by and Rex. I see you out there. It looks like Jill might have popped by. Deconverted Man, I gave you a shout out at the beginning of the video. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, brother. I really appreciate you. Guys, my throat is really bothering me. I'm having a hard time. I'm losing my voice here. So how, before I even get into some of these questions, because I do have some questions just off your first slide. I know you have another slide to get to too. So we'll definitely take time to get through all this. But you mentioned we're talking about corruption right now. So let's just get right into the meat and potatoes of that. How does your system, before we even get into really the details of it, how does your system protect itself from corruption?
Well, that was my main concern. Corruption was literally my main concern. From Why am I getting feedback?
I can hear you. You said that was your main concern.
Yeah, but I'm getting feedback for some reason.
Is you? Do you
I
have
fixed it.
YouTube? Do you have YouTube open in the background?
Yeah, I fixed it. So that was my main concern, and I've been following because, as I said, I lived off grid alternatively for about 7 years, and there were quite a few people that were completely enamored with things like Bitcoin, and they're going, yeah, because it's so safe, because it's all blockchain ledgered and blah 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 blah. So the first thing that I would do for my internal system would be have everything on a blockchain ledger, which means that every micro transaction would be recorded and would be available for the entire community to see if they wanted to.
So,
Now, yeah.
so how is people's privacy protected if every single transaction this is every single financial transaction, but every single
Yes,
financial
because
transaction
like, yeah,
exposes a lot about your life that people may not want exposed, right?
well, like I said, I would track the flow of goods. So you wouldn't know a person. Basically, what you would know is, oh, 2,000 liters of fuel had been bought here, or 20 new tractors had been bought by this person over there. So you would know the goods that they had acquired and the amount that they'd spent on them, but it wouldn't automatically link to a person's face or name. It would only link to a number. And the reason that I decided that from the beginning was because I personally, if I got lucky enough to have a pilot scheme start, I couldn't be involved in it at all, because I'm the person that created the system. I made it, and it's not a system for me. It's a system to manage group finances for a particular community. So I couldn't be involved in it. So if there was a 5,000 pilot scheme, I would first of all want the blockchain, make it a digital currency for the members inside the group, create a second digital currency alongside that for spending outside of the community that's not part of the group, have it blockchained, and then employ people that I like to call cap auditors, just to watch the flows. Now, if somebody buys 10 tractors in a row 5 times a year, why? Why are they doing that? Like, you know, that's a bit of a strange purchase, and it might warrant some further investigation to see why is this happening, you know, because if there's say a cap auditor buying tractors very cheaply, selling them out on the black market, and who knows, storing it in an outside digital currency somewhere, we want to stop corruption. And because we wouldn't be a government body, as a private club and a private group, we would all be responsible for making sure that corruption wasn't happening and nobody was misusing the system. So, yeah, you can't misuse a system if every single one of your purchases is out there in the open and legible for the entire community.
I guess that's kind of my question, though. Is like, how are we protecting people's privacy if every purchase is out in the open? I'm sorry. I think I'm missing something here.
Because the purchases, you know how much has been spent and what it's been spent on, and the person only becomes important if what they've spent on, if it looks anomalous, if it looks out of the ordinary. Otherwise, who cares? Nobody cares. Everybody spends money, right? So nobody really cares what they spent. But when money starts to leak out of the system, because it's supposed to keep as much of the available local funds within a community as possible, all of the money that the community manages to gather together, because there is a form of taxation, all of that the community then gets a say in how they want to spend it. Do they need better sidewalks? Do they need better rubbish collection? Do they need whatever it is that they need? Or if the community itself doesn't need anything, what would be the best thing that the community could invest in to increase the pot? So basically, because SPEC would be literally in charge of the community's pot, there would have to be very strict oversight on that to make sure that nobody is abusing it. It's just to keep
when SPEC is when these investments are being made, my assumption is these investments are being made in an outside market, right? Because an internal investment wouldn't make sense. Like what would actually value?
No, because how the best way for a community to grow and prove that it's successful is to invest in things outside their community, because that's where in the beginning there's so many in any postcode or any zip code. If you look at it, there are so many investment opportunities that you could make, but either people don't have the inclination, it's not going to be something that's going to make massive amounts of profit. It might just gently tick over, and the money people aren't really concerned. Oh, well, I created 20 local jobs and it ticks over quite nicely. That's not what they're interested in. But as a local community, if you could say start a small washing company and wash the next village's sheets or something. You could give them a better deal than their in-house service, and you create 5 local jobs in your village. That's worth something, just not to any major investor. So I also go into great length because your spec community has a central pot. Now anybody can say, I've got a business proposal, this is what it is. It goes to the cap auditors, they look at it. If it's mathematically correct, and legally above board, they'll invest in you to create your own micro business. Yeah. And as long as after you've paid your taxes, you keep $10 in your pocket, the community won't care. As long as you're not running at a loss, the community will invest in you, because you can pay your dues to the community. You become a valuable member of the community. You make the community stronger. You're adding something to the community. The community will invest in you. And there will be, with 5,000 people, there will be 4,000 people that don't want to invest in anything or anyone. And the community will have that money in the pot for the 1,000 people to go, oh, I was thinking I could maybe do this or do that. And on average, you can take a bit of a higher risk because you're investing in your local community. If one business fails, then the other one will succeed. And I just know that the system that I've thought of, as long as it's completely within the spec framework, it's a very easy way to create hundreds and hundreds of micro businesses.
Now, what happens if so you've got, it sounds like, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, so please correct me if I'm wrong here, because I'm trying to keep up with everything you're saying here. So it sounds like you've got an oversight committee that's making these ultimate decisions on these business startups. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
only because those people, and I call them cap auditors, they're the ones that have degrees in accounting. They're the ones that can count, and because if the community makes too many wrong investments, and 60% of them have zero return, then eventually the community is going to get into a crisis. And so just basically, and to help the people, maybe make suggestions. The aim would be to approve every loan. And I know for a fact now in a bank, their aim is to say no to 90% of everybody who asks, no matter who they are. So that within that community, the aim would be to say yes to 90% of all of the people. So, yeah.
Now, what happens if, let's say, for example, you've got some random business, a window washing company, right? And a guy says, hey, I've got a window washing company, and this is my cost of materials is very low. My cost of labor is very low. I can charge this amount. The market will bear this amount for me to charge for my service. I've got a profit margin of 80%. That's a great business model, right? And so this oversight committee, I'm assuming, will say, wow, 80% profit margin. Absolutely, you're approved. So this guy starts his wonderful.
Even at 10% profit margin, they would approve.
Okay, so he's got a profit margin. And so I don't know a lot of people that would go into business for only 10%, but let's just say they've got a really nice, juicy 80%, whatever it is, doesn't matter. They've got a profit margin. They've been approved. This wonderful window washing company is doing great. And it turns out they're doing such a good job that they end up putting 3 existing window washing companies out of business that have already been pre-approved, that have already been in business. They have tenure, but now they're not able to compete because this other guy is so good at washing windows that and his marketing scheme is so good, his whatever it might be. He's got girls in bikinis washing the windows or whatever the hell he's doing to make all that to sell it. You're right. Right. Exactly. So whatever he's doing that's so successful, his business model is killing it. Now you've got 3 other companies that have already been washing windows, that have already been improved, already been putting into the system. They're no longer viable. What happens to those businesses?
Well, that's the secondary part, because the central thing would be willing to invest in anybody in the community. Now, for one, why is this new window business doing better than all of you? Is it because the cost of the materials that they're buying in is so low that you just can't compete? Or is it that they've created a new kind of widgy thing that just you don't even need to know much about winding, you just need to kind of show it to the what is it that is giving that one particular person an edge on the two existing business? Because normally it shouldn't be that way. Normally they should grow slow, and the same people that would lend you the money to start your new business would also be there to give you advice to, as maybe you should talk with this guy, maybe you can kind of like go all in together or something, because otherwise you're going to lose your business. Spec doesn't stop people from going bankrupt. If a business is not working, if the product that you're providing for people yesterday was good for the people, but today it's not, that's just a failing business model. Come up with something else. So no bailouts, no protecting one person. No, that's why it's not communist. You have to compete in the market. You automatically have to compete with other people in your community if they're got a service similar to yours. That's that.
Okay. Another question I had that came up, and I appreciate you letting me, come at you with all this stuff. I know it's tough because I'm coming at you from so many different angles, but as a former business owner myself, I understand a lot more about these economics, in real world applications, having built two businesses from the ground up myself, and having to compete in a free market can be very difficult. You mentioned the cleaning up the planet. That was, I think, in your third point on this slide that you're sharing with us.
Yeah.
How is environmental impact gonna be relative to this particular model that you're talking about? Do you have a committee that actually looks into environmental impact, and how do you go about dealing with that?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is I'm not anti AI at all. When you mention that, how relevant could AI be to modern day ethics? I reckon that if you program a set of rules into the AI, and the people that came up with the rules all came to a consensus that this is the right thing to do, this is the right way to do it, then if the AI said, well, you're breaking the initial rules that you came up with, so basically one component of the spec system would actually be an AI system, one that keeps track of the monies that's coming in, the money that's going out, how many members we've got, what are the social projects that we're doing at the moment. Hopefully later on there would be intra-village projects where, say, that a village that had very cheap labor available would be willing to come to help build a bigger project in a second village. Because one of the first things that I would do within my personal spec community would be get rid of the minimum wage. I think that the minimum wage does more harm than it does good. And I would get rid of that. I think that that's part of socialism that invites apathy.
Well, minimum wage, I mean, I guess I'm really confused now, because minimum wage is a response to inflation, and it ends up being this continuous cycle, right? So minimum wage goes up, the cost of everything goes up. It's relative. Then the cost of everything goes up, so now minimum wage has to go up, and it just continues on until the system crashes.
And I actually believe that if spec were implemented properly with more than 5,000 members internally within the community, the exact opposite would start to happen. Deflation would actually start to happen, because people would find ways to make themselves useful, create micro businesses, and even if it's baking some cakes, baking some bread, solar oven in the garden, whatever it is, yeah, as long as you make, a 10% profit, the system won't care what you're doing, and it will be very easy for you to register your business because it would all be done via the block ledger on the NFC. Your neighbors can simply pay you by tapping their community card. Boom, now you're paid. So goods and services can go back and forwards. Even if you get your next door neighbor to look after your dog for an hour a day, and he goes, yeah, I'll do it for $4. Boom, you tap the card, that's it, a transaction's been made. So everybody's working, everybody pays their dues to the center, and it'd be extremely easy to set up micro businesses. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And ultimately, that would revitalize. Eventually, we're going to come the big companies are all going to automate. Automation is going to come through, smarter robots that work longer hours and can probably do the job better than humans. Even surgeons are going to go to school for 7 years to watch a machine do their job for them. I don't know why we're going to be paying them. I bet you we will. So, and with AI coming up and taking so many blue collar jobs, you can't, unless we create a way for ourselves to create easy micro businesses, so we can all, I think that there's going to be more and more people that end up out of work either or on some kind of universal income system, and a universal income system that's controlled by Donald Trump's friends. I don't think it's going to be good and kind to people. So I've come up with a way to prevent a universal income system ever becoming necessary within SPEC. I think I've managed to do that by allowing people easy access to local work, allowing people to quite easily set up companies. And like I said, as long as the profit margin is minimal, who cares? As long as you can afford the costs for the materials to bring your whatever it is, your loaf of bread to market, as long as you can pay your community fees after you've sold your bread, who cares how much money you've got in your pocket? You might prefer to make $500 a week as to $60 a week. But as long as you're earning $60 a week in your pocket, we're quite happy for you to do so. Do you see what I mean? So that's it. Just a really I want to make it so easy for people to exchange goods and services.
Well, I've got a couple of questions that brings up. So when it comes to these micro businesses, so if you're talking about just like making bread, let's just grant for the sake of argument that wherever you're setting up this community, you have the ability to set up the agriculture. You've got the soil and the right climate, and you can grow the wheat and the whatever, so you can make the flour, you can make the bread. But you need to, at some point, you're going to have to outsource materials. You're going to have to outsource your steel, your plastics, your computer chips, whatever it might be. You're going to have to at some point outsource things. And because you have to outsource things, you are tied to a global market. You can't get away from that. No. So these people, I can understand, I can visualize a small community that basically is working on a barter system, is what it seems like a glorified barter system, right? Like I'm going to watch your dog, you wash my window, whatever, right? We're going to exchange.
But it's all registered. It's all registered, and each transaction is in what I like to call spec. Well, actually, I like to call it the LC, the luxury coin. Each transaction is actually registered in a real monetary value, and because I've got two systems, I've got the what I call spec credit, which is basically everybody who becomes a member. This is the hard part, actually. So if you become a member, you're literally saying, I want to be part of a community that looks after its own. I want to be that good person. I want to reinvest in my local community. So you sign the contract. Now, if you work outside of the community, it doesn't matter. So you're a bank manager 3 villages further up, yeah? So when you say, I want to become a member of SPEC, you sign the contract, you say, I will abide by the rules, and I will receive the benefits. So basically what you say is, I will take all of my salary that I get paid from my job, I will give it to the SPEC exchange. The SPEC exchange will take the community contributions, they would take it all out, and they will pay me back 10% of my wages plus, I don't know why I made it at £81 a week, but it's at plus £81 or $81 in this case. It will probably be like $118 or whatever, back to you. And every person in the community gets given that standard £81 plus 10% of their wages. And everybody agrees to that, because it's literally the only way that you can satisfy the big government, because the big government wants 30% of everything that you'll ever have, sometimes 60. And you need to obviously pay for the community services within the community. So that is the big scary thing about the system that I'm proposing. I'm proposing a 90% tax levy on everything that anybody ever earns. And that's the scary part. But once you get over the scary part, if everybody was only allowed to keep 10% of their wages as personal, gamble it away if you want to, drink it away, do whatever, but the rest of the community, your rent's paid, your insurance is paid, everything's paid, plus there's a massive surplus in the community pots to do community projects, which you can invest in and get even more money. I reckon it would be a better way to run small economies. And in the end, I believe that instead of us going into a universal credit system, which looks very likely, if we ran our communities like that, one person might not be able to make a big change in their local community, but 5,000 people working together towards the same project, whatever it be, a toll bridge, a clean energy factory, maybe something that makes solar paneled jet skis, whatever it would be, your community would have a much bigger pot of investments, somewhere where people feel safe to invest their money. And of course, if anybody in the community needs a loan at any time, they can simply say, well, I invest in this community, my fridge is broken, or my car's broken, or I need X amount of money, and they will give it to you within 24 hours, but you have to pay a 5% on top of whatever it was that you lent, so that the pot keeps. And basically, it's just a way to make a massive community pot to have the funds available to invest in anything that you can imagine at any point. So that's my thinking anyway.
So, okay, so you've got these oversight committees, and your pool for installing the proper person to the proper job when it comes to an economist or an engineer, city planner, things like this. That you have to hope that you have a qualified person within your community. What happens if you don't have a good engineer in your 5,000?
Because the community pot is so large, and say, for example, you realize, okay, my community, if we put an extra bridge here, right, we could build it, we could charge a toll, but we don't have somebody within the community that has the right paperwork to do it safely, legally, and blah. It would still be worth to outsource outside of your community, And in fact, the more that a community does outsource, the better it is for me anyway, because that's how SPEC becomes known. They're like, well, these crazy people, they've got like $7 million to spend on a crazy bridge. But how did they do it? Well, it was quite simple how they did it. All of them paid 60% into a community fund for so long, couldn't find anything that was going to profit them. And the money built up until they had that money so that they could invest in this $7 million bridge project. But once they do, every single person in the community becomes richer because of the toll on the 7 million. Do you see what I mean? So that's the way that I see it. The more interaction with the outside, the better, because you can highlight how one person can never get a bridge built in their village. 5,000 people working together and pooling the funds, it becomes a possibility.
And what when you say $7 million, you're talking about spec community dollars. You're not talking about dollars that are relative. So how does that dollar hold value outside of the spec community? What's backing those dollars?
Okay, so in America, so you'd have the spec community fund, which would be where everybody gets paid their whatever it is, $116 or whatever from it automatically. Oh, wait 1 second. Okay, the free vault system. That's the most important part here, because without the free vault system, none of it works. So I had to invent the free vaults to keep. Well, actually, technically it's 4, but the 3 main vaults. You get a yellow vault, which is the vault that you're, let's call it $160, that your $160 cycles into. Every single week, you give away your entire paycheck. $116 cycles into your yellow vault, yeah, and you get given 10% of your wages back into what I call a blue vault. So let's say that somebody makes $1,500 a week. I can't count. So
you said 106. You said $160.
Yeah. So 106. So I need to make it more simple. So somebody earns $1,500 a week. Yeah. $1,500 a week. Okay. That entire $1,500 goes to the SPEC exchange. Yeah. And you get given $160 into your yellow vault. Yeah. Plus, what's 10% of? Is that $150?
10% would be $150. Yeah. So you would get 210. You'd get $210 then. Your 160 plus your 150.
Yeah. Yeah. But they go into 2 different pots. So the 160 everybody gets, whether they work or not in the community. Yeah, they get the $160, and the people that work, they get to keep 10% of the whatever their wages is. If it's $1,500, it's $150. So the total amount that they will have per week is $150 and $160, right? Every week. So that's 200. I can't count. 320, is it?
150 and 160 would be 310. 310.
So they get 310 a week. And that's it. Of that 310, there's no more bills to be paid on that money. Absolutely none. 0.
Okay, so that's 310 for the person who actually earned and deposited the 1,500. But how many people are going to get $160 out of that 1,500 if everybody in the community is getting that 1,500?
No. Basically, so the way that it works in the UK, everybody who's part. So some people might be on welfare. Some people might have part-time jobs. Other people might be sick. Other people, but each and every one of them has an income that they get given. And if your income is under a certain bracket in the UK, you also get given a rent rebate. They pay a certain amount of your rent for you as well. So you get given your, and the people that work, if you earn, I think it's, if you earn over £1,000 a week, you lose entitlement to all benefits. But if you work under, you're still entitled to get rent rebates and stuff like this, you know. So basically, the entire pot, everybody's money goes into the central pot. Everybody gets $160 and 10% of whatever their wages is. If they don't earn any money, they get 10% of nothing.
Oh, that's a good question Daniela asked, and I do want to get into some of this as well. So Daniela asked about MAID. I don't know if you're familiar. Oops, wrong. Oh, by the way, Scott, nice to see you.
It's the Canadian assisted exiting program, right?
It's not just in Canada, but yeah, it's medical assistance in dying, and there's different models all over the world. Canada has a pretty good model, in my opinion. There's a few states in America that have it, but it's extremely highly restrictive, and I'm not a fan of it. Better than nothing, I guess, but the American model is really bad. You basically have to have a terminal disease or terminal illness, and I think you have to be diagnosed with like 2 weeks or less to live. At which point it's like, what's even the point? You know what I mean? It's kind of ridiculous.
I can actually speak from personal experience. My sister's ex-husband of like 20 years ago, he met the love of his life when he was quite young, 20. They got married. They lived together all the way from in their 20s all the way up into their 78s now, and his wife passed away from cancer, and he had some health conditions, but none of them were life-threatening. But he told his doctor that since she's gone, he didn't know what to do with himself. He didn't see that there was anything he just wanted out. He literally went, and the guy said, okay, we'll make an appointment, discuss it in a month. He went back a month later. He said, I haven't changed my mind. 1 month later, that was it. He was gone. That was in the Netherlands.
Yeah, so I wasn't planning on getting into a whole MAID conversation, but Rex, somebody who just joined the chat here. Hello, nice to see you, Rex, always. Yeah, the problem is, and I think I am going to do a whole show on MAID specifically, is it's actually highly immoral and really dark to force people to live when they don't want to. Literally say you have two options. You can either live basically against your will, or you can go jump off a bridge. That to me is highly immoral because nobody asked to be born, right? So because nobody asked to be brought into this world, then no, it's okay, Daniela, because this is a really important topic actually. And I am going to do a whole show on this. So I've had a conversation with Life Abolitionist about this. It's on my channel. He's a anarchist, and I don't take the anarchist position. I don't think we should be offering MAID unregulated because it's a medical procedure. However, I don't think it needs to be so highly restricted. You need to have checks and balances in the process because that's a responsible way of doing it. But it makes no sense to me to force people to live when they didn't ask to be born. That's ridiculous. So we need to offer something that some kind of compromise, right? To give people an ethical and a humane way to get off the roller coaster ride if they don't want to be on it anymore. Andy, so good to see you, brother. I'm glad you joined us today. All right, Robin, I apologize for derailing. That's actually my fault. But
okay.
No, it's really important.
On the topic of MAID, I can speak for me personally. I believe that if somebody wants out, there should be a process that you have to go through. You should have to talk to a real doctor to assess your physical abilities and need, and then you should have to go and talk to a counselor and really explain to them whether it be 4 appointments over a month, and really constantly say my life is that terrible and I need a quick painless way out. So me personally, I believe that MAID should be accessible to everybody with protections and oversight so that people aren't being abused. SPEC the Social Prosperity Charter has absolutely no say in it, because the Social Prosperity Charter only makes the rules for its members. It does not make the laws of the nation that it is in. I mean, if there were enough SPEC members, they could lobby. If they had like 5 million SPEC members, they could all do an international lobby. But SPEC doesn't make the law, it just regulates its members.
Sorry, I was just responding to the comment here. Yeah, I think I will do that at some point here in the near future, because I want to get into this topic. So when it comes to legislation, you said that your community is going to be subject to the laws that govern the territory that your community is set up in. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
So,
you can't
for
yeah.
example, if gay marriage is legal in where you are with your SPEC community, let's say Kansas, right? I'd love it. All of Kansas goes SPEC, right? They all decide to share 90% of everything that they accumulate in earnings with each other to build a way better Disneyland in Kansas than ever existed anywhere else. Maybe even start their own space program. So if gay marriage in Kansas was illegal via the big government, via then it would be illegal within the SPEC community as well. But then the SPEC community would probably do a civil partnership or something. They wouldn't be against it, because SPEC doesn't really care. The only thing that my SPEC system cares about is that the pot stays full, there's no homelessness, no violence, as many people are actively engaged in employment as possibly can, the streets are as clean and as safe as they can. Basically, those are the things that SPEC's worried about. Then SPEC isn't worried about local politics at all. And I should imagine that anybody that is willing to share 90% of everything that they earn, well, it's not 90%, it's actually 60%, because 30% has to go to the main branch of government. And if you don't pay your taxes, the IRS comes around your house and does horrible things to you. So I would advise paying them their money. But the 60% that the SPEC keeps is for community projects, and SPEC guarantees you 5,000% that without explicit 60% vote by the members, that it will never be invested outside of your community. That's the one thing that SPEC would promise. It is to keep local money circulating locally, and it's each and every village has their own SPEC exchange. There isn't one. Each postcode, if there's 7,000 zip codes, there's 7,000 SPEC exchanges. They're linked to each other. They can work with each other, but each and every village is independent under that system. They choose who they want to work with, when they want to work with them. It's not one central system. It's lots of little central village centralist systems, all linked to each other. So you could have a SPEC village in Kansas, and you could have one in China somewhere. Yeah, they would all choose to live under the same rules. I give 90%. Well, I give everything to the center. Then I get my stand $160 back, plus I get the 10% of my wages back. Yeah, but for that, my community tries to make that my electricity gets cheaper, that my water gets cheaper, that my road maintenance gets cheaper, that my rubbish collection gets more efficient. Where if there's money left over, we start generating our own power. So the community tries to become as self-sufficient as it possibly can, so that it can save its members as much money as it possibly can. It's basically a collective bargaining tool. That's what it is.
So I'm trying to think of, so bear with me here while I try to lay this out. So I spent a year up on the border of Washington and Canada, out in the fucking wilderness. It was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. I was a teenager and I was essentially homeless at the time, just making that transition from getting out of homelessness. And I came across this church that actually owned this property up in the woods, and I'm talking way out in the woods. It's up on top of, it's above Lake Chelan. You take a ferry, then you have to take this bus ride that's like 2 hours up in the wilderness, and then it goes even beyond that, and it's way up north. And they rent out, in order to sustain the cost and expenses of keeping this property, they rent out the village, usually 1 week at a time. And so every week they would just bring a busload of people up, right? And then it'd be a different busload of people every week. And it was so much fun because I just got to meet so many different people staying up there. And the way that I was able to stay up there, so they have a community that lives and works up there, right? And so they are basically this private community that is self-sustaining. We grew our own food, built our own housing, sustained ourselves in every way, completely independent. There was no external sources. In fact, we had one telephone up there that was reserved for emergencies, but that was it. Like, so every week when people would come up on the bus, one of the first things that they would have to do is practice what we called a fire line, because we literally had a bucket brigade, which is how we would fight fires in the event that we had a fire, especially during the summer. It's very dangerous. And we literally had to have hundreds of people line up and practice passing buckets of water to each other. This is how we were going to fight fires and stuff. And it was such a great experience because you are just isolated from everything. No phones, no televisions, nothing, right? And I worked up there. So because I worked up there, I was allowed to stay up there for free. And it's like free housing, but you exchange your labor for the housing, right? And inside of this community, you didn't need any money because everything was based on a labor exchange. However, there were some resources that we had to outsource. We had to purchase materials. There were some food products we actually had to purchase. It had to be delivered on the barge. We'd have to send a crew down on the bus once a week.
I should imagine that fertilizers and stuff and that would have to come from outside as well.
Well, there were certain things like, so we would do our own, make our own fertilizer by, well, I can't even think of what the word is when you, composting. Thank you. The word was just gone. It's like my head was just empty there, like this, this hollow chamber in between my ears. Composting. We would set up our own composting, stuff like that. Highly nutritious fertilizer that we make ourselves. But there were things we did have to outsource. Medical supplies, for example, lots of stuff actually. So we would still have to have this barge come up at least once a week, once every 2 weeks, to deliver supplies, right? And in order to make those purchases the supplies that we would have delivered to on this barge, we had to rely on external donations from people living out in the real world that would actually give us money that we could use then to spend out in the real world. So with this SPEC thing, I can see, because I've experienced it myself, an internal community can literally have a complete barter system. You can trade seashells or rocks or whatever you want to represent a certain value. It's completely meaningless because it's all arbitrary. It's whatever you want to set up within your own internal system, and it can work perfectly fine. But at some point, you must interact with the outside world, the global economy. What value do these people have to offer this global economy? That's what I'm having a hard time understanding. What funds actually generate?
The first thing that tiny community had was they became an alternative retreat. So they probably got donations from people that came there to experience a different pace of life. So they came down to experience something that's more natural, more community orientated. And if they got value from that experience, they were probably the people that were the ones that were donating for when the barge would come, you know. Secondly, if there was somebody within that village that had carving skills or something, they could create an online shop. if you had a surplus of compost that you could make, you could sell the surplus of compost. If you had a surplus of vegetables or whatever, the project I was working on in Spain, we grew hemp to create CBD, which is a high value crop, at the time. A box of 100 grams of CBD gummy bears will cost you $60, high value crop. So every community can create, and the problem with the thing is, the closest to what I'm saying would be an alternative community out in the sticks. I want to do this in Washington, D.C., straight under the officials' nose. We're a club. We invest together, because there's nothing wrong with you investing with your friends in your community. That's business. You're all business partners. You're all pooling your money to do something. The reason that nobody actually does do it is because how can I trust anybody? Which is why I've got.
Let me just real quick. I don't want to cut you off, but I want to stay linear here. So you're exactly right, and that's my point. The significant majority of the funds that we had in order to engage in what would be the external market, right, to purchase our supplies to be delivered to this barge, was brought in by donations. Now, there were some people, like I said, groups would rent out the village, but that rental fee would only cover a bare minimum of expenses. The significant majority, the only reason is, and also because we had to shut down to the outside world, we could not rent it out for at least 4 months out of the year, because the winters are so extreme up there that there would be like the chalets were like 2 stories, and the snow, you'd wake up in the morning and I shit you not, the snow would be literally up to the second balcony. It was amazing. It was absolutely fucking gorgeous. You could literally just take your snowboard out and just walk up a hill somewhere and just cruise down into the village. It was so beautiful. And there was nothing like it. I mean, the stars, without the city lights and stuff, to see the stars. And we built a big sauna that could hold like 60 people. You'd have to go out in the morning and light the fire in the stove in order to get the sauna heated up by time for the night. It was amazing. An experience I'll never forget. But the point of what I'm saying here is that in order to get this, to be able to actually survive, we relied on donations. With SPEC, it seems to me you're still relying on something that you're not producing yourself. Even if you're in the city and you can produce hemp or whatever you can produce, I don't see a production unless you're making like microchips or something. What are you producing? Because again, you're in order to produce something, you have to have a particular expertise in order to be competitive in the global market. You've got to be able to get your materials at a lower cost.
No. You see, this is where I think you're getting confused. SPEC competes. The members of SPEC, if you both produce the same product, you will both be competing against each other. There is nothing that I can do about that. But because in SPEC you all live in the city, every single one of you already has a job that guarantees you an income before you ever become a member of SPEC. If you're a welder, you're already a welder. You just become a member of SPEC. If you're permanently sick, you've got severe autism or blah, you already get given money by the state. You become a member, right? So basically, SPEC members can work outside the community. It's only a postcode. It's only a zip code in the middle of London. You can work anywhere you want. It's literally just making the decision. I want to be a member of something bigger than myself. And I would want to help my neighbors more if I could trust them. SPEC is literally a digital system with rules that allows you to trust your neighbors and will defend you if your neighbors break the rules of SPEC. So basically, it's a system to allow communities to work together financially. That's most, like I said, I described it as an analogy, and I know analogies are bad. SPEC is like an event planner, an event organizer. You know how there are people where you go, oh, my business company needs to get to know each other better. Can you organize an event for me so that my business people that work there can create a deeper relationship than just business alone? So SPEC is the event organizer. They say, okay, if all of you want to do something, pull your funds here, and then we'll take a vote. What is it that we want to do? What is it that you want to do? Your job, your jobs will remain the same. Even if you're not working, it doesn't matter. You're still welcome inside SPEC. And because it's done per postcode, you can pretty much work out to the dollar how much money there is in any zip code. And that's the money that you start with, the money that was there day one in that zip code. And I did the calculations for a place called Caterham in the UK. And on the very first day, the SPEC pot was £1.58 million, which was more than enough to pay that $160 that I was talking about. It was more than enough to pay all 5,000 members their $160. And the 10% that they get to keep of their wages was theirs already. So the mathematics is perfect. The poorest person ends up with $160 a week. And if you earn $1,500 a week, you end up with $310 every single week to manage your life. But you get rent rebates because you're under the limit. You get red voucher payment. You get pension payments of $1 every week into a 5% APR pension project, and you get your insurance paid up to a certain amount as well. So basically, that $310 is just basically for you to eat, buy clothes, get cash for your. There's no major cost. That's just living. That's living money. It's the money that you live on.
Okay, so we've got a couple things to get through. The show is getting a little bit long in the tooth, and I want to open up the panel for people to join. And I do actually want. It seems like there's a lot of people who wanted to talk about MAID, and I do want to get into that if that's something. But I always open up the panel, let people bring their own topics.
My one last graphic that I
yeah, I do want to bring that up. And before I do, so is that going to be related to these vaults? Because you mentioned 3 vaults. I know you said yellow vault. You just mentioned red vault. Is that part of this next graphic?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Basically, it's called a V chart, and it's what engineers. This is what engineers use for any major project that they're going to come up with. And on the left-hand axis, you put the ingredients that you're going to need, and then on the right-hand axis, you get the results of the ingredients that you put in. And unfortunately, I can't read it because it's not a big screen. But I need to go to big screen just so you can hear me. So decomposition on the left-hand side. So the stakeholders' needs, moral architecture, the definition of dignity, stability, anti-extraction goals. The second is the system architecture, the vaults, plus internal cash flow circulation, the rules that make sure that it's safe, and the amount of time that every person individually puts into the project for making their own personal money that they pull back out, which we call wages. Whether you work within the community or not, your time is still valuable to the community. Then you've got the SPEC economic engine, which means that if you do decide to actually invest extra money into the project, if you put $1 in, at the end of the year, you'll get $1.05 back. I can't actually see any of the comments at the moment because I'm looking at the thing. And then you've got the integration, you've got the implementation. In order to make this, you need to be able to build the vaults, You need to be able to enforce them, which is what the CAP auditors are. Yeah. Plus, CAP auditors, if they can actually go after somebody in your community, whether they're a member or not, and they can prove that they're defrauding the community, if you can bring a class 2 action, the people that bring the corruption to the attention, if it ends up in a monetary compensation, they get to keep 10% of it. You've got the system contract, which is the SPEC exchange. It's the thing that measures all flows. It's the thing that pays out the $160 to every single member, and it is the person that gives each and every member 10% back of what they actually own, and then gives them all of the benefits, rent rebates, recaps, all of that. Verification, that's the NFC cards. Each and every person has an NFC card, which is a card that allows you to spend the electronic coin that is registered to them. So basically, with that one card, they can make any purchase with it within the community or with outside of the community. One SPEC dollar is worth exactly the same as the US Treasury dollar, and it's linked to the US Treasury. Every 30 seconds, the machine will look how much is a dollar worth, and that's exactly what the dollar on your card will be worth. To the outside world, one SPEC dollar will be exactly the same as an American dollar, because it will literally be linked to it. And it will be transferred from your wages, which get paid in American dollars because you work at a big car company. They pay you $1,500 a month. You give those $1,500 to the SPEC exchange. It gives you your 160 plus the 150 back. They're real dollars. It's not pretend money. It's real dollars, which means you can spend those real dollars on anything that you want. Yeah. But if you spend the money within the community, things will actually be cheaper than outside the community. It's a deflationary system. And then you come to this big central block in the middle of the V, all the way at the bottom, which says subsystem design. Now, to protect the people, there are 6 locks that are in place that prevent extraction. They just prevent defrauding. They prevent people getting double booked. They prevent people from getting rent rebates that don't own it. Because, for example, if you live with your wife and you both work, and your X amount is above a certain amount of the dollar value, then your rent rebates will fall down, you know. So it's a taxes system also because it makes sure that the American state gets what it owes, because RSA, what do you call it? They will not allow somebody to take what they consider to be theirs. If you do not pay your taxes, they will come after you and they will put you in prison. That's got nothing to do with SPEC. That's just the law, right? Everybody has to pay their taxes. And then there is the grey vault system, which we haven't got into. If you run your own business within SPEC, everything that you need to invest into something before it goes to market, say the bread, yeah? So you've got a community baking thing. So you bake 10 loaves of bread every 2 days for your clients. Everything that goes into buying the flour, the gas for the oven, the maintenance for the oven, you know, all of those things are grey vault money. They're the money that circulates within your business, but it's not the money that ends up in your pocket. Those are the things that it costs you to bring your product to market. Does that make sense? And then on the bottom, it's just got the yellow vault, the blue vault, the red vault being the pension vault, the freedom vault, which is the centralized thing, which is everybody being able to pull their money for certain projects, and the grey vault is only applicable if you own your own business with inside SPEC. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure it does. I'm just trying to put this all together. So you mentioned, to get into the this exchange, when you say every SPEC dollar is worth it's based on the U.S. dollar value, right?
Yeah.
For exchange. What happens if the U.S. dollar crashes?
Your money crashes as well.
So you're basing it on U.S. economy because it's one of the strongest economies. That's why you'd pick the U.S.
No. Remember when you said, what if my community needs goods and services from outside the community? If their money with inside the community isn't worth exactly $1, then they can't buy stuff outside the community. And you can't compete against the national currency. It will always be stronger than your little mini. So if you link your internal currency straight to the national currency, whether it be the yen, the dollar, the pound, the euro, you can easily buy stuff outside of your community. Inside your community, the things that are produced locally, you might be able to get cheaper than outside because your overheads are less, but you're going to need stuff like you said. If I make bicycles, I'm going to need steel. I'm going to need things from outside my community. So if my external money, that's my blue vault, if my blue vault money is worth exactly $1, it gets pinged every 30 seconds because it's an electronic system. It's an electronic currency, right? You can ping it you can keep it exactly. So if the dollar crashes, so does that blue vault money. It crashes instantly because it's directly connected to the American dollar. Now, why should everybody get SPEC? Because it's quite possible that the American dollar will crash. Because people gamble with the American dollar all the time. People make unsafe bets with the American dollar all the time. But your SPEC credit, nobody can do something stupid and dangerous with it because you have a say in it. If your community disagrees with what they want to do, then it won't happen. That's just that. It's your money. The community money is every member of that community's money. They all have a say on how it's spent and what should be done with it.
So you're subject to the external taxes because your community is in, like you said, Washington, D.C. So you've got Washington, D.C.'s state tax. You've also got America's federal tax, and now you've got SPEC tax. Is that right?
Yeah. And hopefully, eventually, through collective bargaining, the people could go, well, actually, you say that you provide this service for us, our schooling, but none of our children go to a state school anymore. We've built our own school. We've trained our own teachers, but we're still paying you for a service that you're not providing. So hopefully, after SPEC has grown mature enough, eventually SPEC can start collectively bargaining with their local and their big government saying, well, if we provide these services for ourselves, why are we paying into the pot? You don't provide us those services. So they can start clawing stuff back. And I reckon if SPEC becomes a more stable way of doing things, eventually there'd be enough people to say, well, what do we actually need you guys for anyway? So then your taxes might be reduced to only 10% to big government and 60% to the SPEC exchange. SPEC can live without the government, by the way. It doesn't need a government. But the government will literally kill you if you try to break away from them. Remember what happened with the English in America? They thought that they owned America, and the Americans were like, well, we own America. They literally had to kill each other to find out who was right. SPEC doesn't want to start a war. It wants to slowly and quietly outgrow first its local government, then its national government.
Yeah, I don't think these governments are going to be too likely to want to give up the power that they hold, no matter how efficient your local community is, because they're getting everything they want. They're getting you to police yourselves and accept a lot of your own burdens and culpability for your own happiness while you still pay their taxes. I mean, they're getting the best of both worlds.
But that is the trick. As long as you're playing their game in the beginning, they'll allow it. Not not seeing the problem with the long-term picture, because the more and more and more autonomous these local communities, now you've got 7 different SPEC communities within the Washington area, all cooperating with each other. There's no minimum loan, there's no minimum wage, there's no blum. People just get on with it. They literally feel like they have the power to bargain for their goods and services, you know? Because say there's a McDonald's in your local village, and the people are like, you might have to pay me, you don't have to pay me, but I want this amount of money. And McDonald's goes, well, no, we'll give you minimum wage or nothing. Well, you'll go, well, what if 700 of us get together, ask for a loan at the SPEC exchange, and we build something that looks so similar to McDonald's, and we put out that this is local money, it's not going to some shareholders that live in Afghanistan, this is local. How long do you think that you could compete against us? The McDonald's would go out of business. So collective bargaining in the end will destroy all big governments. That's the secret aim of SPEC. First you play by their rules until you've got so many members that you can't be ignored, and then the SPEC's already got its rules. That's that. No inheritance tax, no land tax, no this tax. It cuts through, SPEC cuts through red tape like butter. Do you want to start a business? You can within a single day. You can't do that now in any of the Western nations. First you have to do this, and then you have to get this certificate, and then you have to get that certificate. Then you have to, and now your business is a completely separate entity from you. And now you need limited, like, SPEC doesn't do any of that stuff. Yes, it protects its members, but it doesn't do any of the corporate red tape that modern capitalism does, because it doesn't need it.
Well, maybe it's quite possible, because this is very complex, and it could be, some of it could be going over my head, but it seems like that you actually are charging those taxes, but you simply relabel them and repackage them into just this flat tax. It's like offering calling it a difference without a distinction.
Yeah. It literally is a flat tax, but it's a flat tax with the caveat: if you ever need something back, you go, I give 90% of everything I do. My car just broke down. I need a new one tomorrow. I need $33,000. And it goes, yeah. It goes, yeah, cool. As long as you pay 5% on top of that $33,000, have the money. It's in the pot. If the money's not in the pot, you can't have it. But if it is in the pot and you can invest it and you can afford to pay back the loan, have the money. It's just sitting there. That the SPEC system needs people to constantly reinvest in the system so that it can grow. Money has to circulate, but not. There's a big difference between money circulating within your community as opposed to money leaking out of your community. Because when you eat at McDonald's in your local community, that money goes to the shareholders of McDonald's that live in, I don't know, Uzbekistan. It's leaving, all of the wealth is leaving your community. Yeah. And one day, if your community stops being appropriate for McDonald's, they'll move. They don't care about the people working for them. They don't care about. So basically, if you can keep the money locally within local businesses as much as you possibly can, you create more stable, stronger communities. And like I said, you can create hundreds and hundreds of micro businesses. And you can all trust each other because you're all using the same central currency, the same digital currency, and paying somebody for their services is as simple as typing a number into an NFC reader and tapping your card, and that's it. Now you've done it. Now you've paid for their services. And because it's a community project, it's got nothing to do with big government. That's the plan. But big government gets their 30%, and hopefully they choke on it. But That's my plan.
All right. Well, let's interesting. Very interesting. Let's go ahead and bring up. Let me take this down. Let's go
Thank
ahead.
you very much for your time, lads and ladies. I can't see you in the chat because I'm on. But when the panel opens up, I'll try to follow the chat.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and put the I'm gonna put the link in the chat right now, actually. And anybody who wants to come up and we could talk about this spec plan, or if I would be more than willing to get into the MAID conversation or any of the other ethical concerns that people might have with this system. Really anything. You guys know how we do the open panel here. You guys kind of run the show from this point out. As long as everybody's willing to be respectful and polite, you're all welcome to be a part of this. Let me pin this. Did I not post that? I am so bad at this. No, I didn't. I'm so Who's running this show? Okay, let me try this again.
And like I said, it's very complex, and that's the reason that I wrote my book. I've also got little mini cartoons that highlight one small thing, like how does a 7-way job share work? How does the grey vault work? How I have tried to chop this up into as many small pieces as I possibly can. But like I said, I might not be good at that. I've never tried to redesign a system that isn't capitalist, isn't socialist, isn't anything the world's seen before. I've never tried to do it before, which is why I speak about it, because I kind of hope that one day somebody's going to say, do you know what you should do? Right? And they're gonna come up with something revolutionary. And I'm going, I don't understand it. And they go, I'll explain it to you. If you just did this, this, and this, and this. But what I do know is that the current capitalist socialist system doesn't work. Nobody really understands the rules. It doesn't have equal outcomes. It doesn't have equal starts. It's overcomplicated. Small businesses are getting less and less and less, not more and more and more. And we're in serious trouble. Maybe not in our lifetimes, but if we stretch the same trends going forward now for the next 500 years, I believe that humanity is going to be in some serious trouble. And if we don't start doing things differently, we will regret it as a species.
Well, I do agree with that. I think that we are destined for a lot of problems. I think most of the problems that we are looking at in the future, though, have to do with overpopulation. And I think that's a real issue. That to me, I think, is our most glaring issue. We've got to find an ethical or a humane way to get people to understand that they need to slow down this reproduction. We need to start cutting down the global population ethically. Right, and so that is a really difficult.
I actually think that that's already happening, because India, the most populous nation on the face of the planet, has actually finally now this year gone into less than replacement rate. They have less babies.
There is actually a shift, and I think it's actually tied to evolution, and I think this has a lot to do with the fact that there's no such thing as free will. That we're starting to get more and more global media attention on the fact that the global warming impact is a serious threat. Human caused climate change is a serious threat. Global economics are in serious threat. We're still at global wars all over the place.
I actually think that
so what's happening? Well, hold on. What's happening, brother, is that women, right, are starting to, they're being exposed to this information, and I think that it's starting to affect their interest in having children, is my guess, because they're recognizing that having children and being able to provide a good life for these children is becoming less and less likely, and that's reducing their motivation to want to reproduce. Is my theory.
Yeah, but why is that? Is that because humans are less and less capable, or is that because our economic system is a direct incentive not to have to care about somebody else because it doesn't care about you?
Well, I don't even know if that's necessarily true, because the economic system, all of the economics globally are built around infrastructure. and the governments and using religion especially to gaslight the shit out of people and say that you want to have more children, you want to be popping out kids all over the place. That's what they're trying to tell people, because the infrastructure relies on middle-aged healthy adults to sustain this infrastructure. The problem is the more, especially with the advancements in medicine, people are living longer. So we have a lot of more elderly people who really can't contribute to the infrastructure. They're just a burden on the infrastructure. We have babies that aren't yet able to contribute to the infrastructure, but they rely on the infrastructure. So in order to sustain this infrastructure, we've got to get more middle-aged, healthy adults that can sustain.
The age pyramid has to actually be a diamond to make things work properly, right? So if it's a diamond and it's fattest in the middle, then you've got the most possible people working to share the burden of medical health care, infrastructure, fulfill all of the jobs that are needed. The one problem with all of that is that economists aren't very smart people. They told us that the world would be overpopulated at 8 billion people. It's not. We have enough resources to actually look after twice as many people. And every single one of those 8 billion people would all fit into the state of Texas. They'd have to hold hands, but they could all fit in it. And the rest of the planet would be completely empty of humans. The fact that a third-hand house costs more than a new house. If a house is 150 years old, how can it cost more than a house that was built last week? That don't make no sense. Economics is completely messed up. Now, if our economics worked, if the world suffered from a constant state of deflation instead of inflation, if we had ways that we could work, like I said, with members of our local community, that we knew for a fact that we could trust a complete stranger and still personally benefit from your investment, I think that would change a lot of stuff.
I don't know. There's some things you said there that I think are just demonstrably false, brother. For one thing, I don't know where you got this idea that the globe could sustain double the amount of people that it has right now. So you're talking about 17 billion people on this planet. Yeah. So right now, the only way that 8 billion people are being, quote unquote, sustained is a large number of those people are living in poverty, in destitution, that we have to use factory farming to actually feed all these people. Factory farming is one of the leading causes of global climate change. So all these people creating these resources, where'd you get that from?
If we measure today's poverty with the poverty of, say, the UK in the Victorian era, yeah, a poor person today still got a smartphone, still got the internet, still got Nike, doesn't even have to pay for their clothes because charities constantly keep giving them. Being a poor person now is not the same as being a poor person 100 years ago.
You're talking about, wait a minute, now hold on, brother. Wow, this is insane. So you're talking about being a poor person in a first world country, not being an actual poor person. I'm talking about actual poor people.
The poor person in the third world country, he owns his little shack, his little hovel. He owns his hole in the ground. He's richer than you, that you might own your $500,000 house, right? But he actually owns it. You're probably still paying a mortgage. Poverty is,
and his children, that person you're calling rich is dying, and their children are dying from disease. They're struggling with starvation. They have no fresh water. They don't have any electricity. I mean, you say they own a hole in the dirt. Well, that's lovely, but what kind of a life are they actually living? They are struggling to survive every single day.
And each and every one of those people actually hasn't been taught to be productive, because just imagine that the entire world started to embrace the principles of permaculture. Yeah, we could literally feed twice the amount of people at half the pollution, environmental damage. We could do it. We just don't want to. So the thing that makes poor people is rampant capitalism. The thing that poisons the planet is rampant capitalism. It's like long before poverty gets the majority of us, rampant capitalism will get us before then. And I just know it for a fact.
Well,
It
I am
causes
not a fan of laissez-faire capitalism, but I think that that's just, again, I don't know where you're getting your information, because capitalism, like China, is not capitalist, and they are one of the biggest polluters on the globe. India is not
And that's
capitalist.
why, that is literally why China is one of the biggest polluters on the planet. It's because they really are capitalists. The people with the money are capitalists. They pretend to be communists so that they can keep the poor downtrodden. They're not communists. Like I said, if you look up the millionaire village in China, and I can do it on my own, everybody in that village is millionaire, and it's literally the only communist village in China.
You could call it like a pseudo communism or a pseudo socialism, but it's certainly not capitalism, and neither is India. These are two of the biggest polluters on the globe, and neither one of these would be what we call capitalist free market societies. That's just not happening.
I don't know. Both of them seem to be wanting to put people on the moon so that they can get the helium free. And they expect all of their people to pay for that when none of their people will benefit from it.
But just because they have technological advancements doesn't make them capitalist. And again, I'm not a fan. I'm not trying to defend laissez-faire capitalism by any stretch. That's not my thing. As I said at the beginning of the show, I think a combination of a free market society with socialist policies such as free healthcare, free education, free or limited low-cost housing.
But the only way that you can provide all of those services free is if every individual within that system donates 90% of all of their wealth to that system.
No, that's not. You don't need to donate 90% of your wealth to that system, because there are places like Norway. They have a tax structure that's actually based very similar to what we do here in America.
Okay,
they have
the Norwegians
and if you look at what they're doing is the tax rate increases as the wealth increases. So they actually tax the rich more at a higher percentage than they tax the poor. So that's how they make all this. That's how they make this work. And the beauty of their system is when you have free education, you are literally reinvesting in yourself, because having more educated people in your community, in your society, make your society more valuable, more equitable. Scott just joined the stage. Scott, welcome, brother. Go ahead and introduce yourself. If you have any questions for Robin, I'm going to step away and get some coffee, and then I'll be right back.
Okay. Hopefully I'm coming out okay, because my mic has been having. Hey, how's it going, Robin? Are you hearing me okay? Because my mic has been having problems.
Perfectly.
Okay, perfect. I don't really have a whole lot to contribute to the overall general conversation, like any sort of necessary critique or whatever, but I can say that globally there's like 3.5 billion, according to the statistics, that lack average living standards in the world. I mean, here in the US, it's roughly like 35 million people who live in, poverty. And but I would say poverty is kind of driven by systemic inequality, low economic growth, inflation, and mainly like poor education and internal conflicts like civil wars and all kinds of things like that. But poor education also contributes to all that. So I just agree with you. I agree with.
And people don't want to give back to their communities because they feel as if their communities has never actually given to them.
Right. And that's what I wanted to bring up, is that one of the things, and I think that you might have touched on this, I kind of came in a little late, and it seemed like it may have been moving in that direction. But again, if we look at like the facts, like if you think about communities that have been thriving for hundreds, if not thousands of years in the world, like they may be considered poor by our standards.
Exactly. Look at the Inuit. Look at the Inuit communities in Alaska.
Right.
They're considered to be poor and downtrodden and blah. They're doing the exact same thing, but better now than they've ever done before.
Right. Those guys you're referring to, anthropologists and sociologists describe them as gift economies or reciprocal exchange economies. and they share ownership and stewardship equally. So in those societies, you got
and Objective points out, well, look at Norway with only 65%, and the richest putting in more than. It's a beautiful country. My system literally says everybody put 90% in. I don't care if you're rich, you're poor, you're ugly. Everybody puts 90% in. That way, we all do the same thing. We get all to live in beautiful Norway, and shut up, right? Because all of these, and this is where I'm not capitalist. All of you capitalists are like, oh, but I run my own little business, and I trained myself up, and I had to work so hard to get my business to a state where I own my house now and my flat. I don't care about you owning your house.
Yeah, but
what
here's the thing, Robert.
All of us getting to live in Norway. If all of us live in Norway, everything's going to be better for everybody, and you still get to own your house and your holiday flat.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Tax.
I get it. I get that. I understand. I think what's going on is, have you ever heard the term spending money out of other people's pocket? In other words, you sort of make an evaluation or a value judgment about a virtue or a society you'd like to live in based on your own projection. So you think that, hey, I equate happiness with owning my own business and being successful and making Google, obscene amount of money. That the more money, the more happiness. That's my value. And so when I project that value onto others, well, it's no wonder I see everybody else is fucked up, because they don't have the same value I have. You see what you see the
my thing. That's why I started with SPEC loves billionaires, right? My system loves billionaires. If you give away 90% of everything you own and you're a billionaire, you're still way richer than everybody else. You can still lord it over them. You can still have the yachts. You can still have the prestige and all of that. Yeah. But 90% of that will go back to your community. Your community will go, wow, I'm so lucky to live in the same
convenient. It fosters.
90% is the thing that gives us the free swimming pools. It's the thing that gives us the free amusement park. It's the thing that allows us to have free public transport. If Elon didn't live here, we'd have to find another billionaire, even though everybody pays 90% tax. Or all the billionaires can go and live in one place, and the 99% of us poor people, we can all pay 90% tax and just never buy any of their shit again.
Right, but I suspect what the pushback you would receive from other people is they would say, I don't give a fuck about fountains and nice roads and nice shit. What I really give a fuck about, what I really value, is I like being on the top of the hierarchy, at least to have that shot to be on the top of the, because people want that shot. Here's a good example. One second, I'll just share a little story. I used to live in Germany, and I knew a lot of people that were on what they called social, which is like social welfare. Now, there were no ghettos in Germany that I ever saw. There were no, it was a clean country. These people had color TVs, really nice cars, all the things you need. Yeah, all the things. But they didn't work. Mothers were able to raise their children, send them to university, do all those things. And they were just happy. But a lot of Americans were like, man, screw this loser life. I would rather be fucking poor out on the damn street. At least I have the freedom to fight to be a millionaire. I'd rather have that chance to be a millionaire or billionaire rather than just settle for comfort and my needs being met. But that's a value projection, and I think anybody.
How many of those people actually became millionaires?
None of them. None of them.
So they wasted their time being envious of the Germans.
Exactly.
None of them. So when we cooperate, right? When we pool our resources, we can do so much more than we can alone. And like I said, I'm not saying that people that work harder shouldn't get paid more. I'm not saying that people that come up with new innovations shouldn't profit from their innovations. All I'm saying is that if we change the system, at the moment, all of us hate paying taxes, but we still do. Yeah. Everybody would hate paying their 90% taxes within my SPEC system, but equality would be much greater. And like I said, we could pretty much automate, because it would be so easy to create your own micro business, your own micro job.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, it's like for me, I've been unemployed for the last 10 months now, 11 months now. One more month will make a year. Thankfully, I've got a job I start here in a few days, and that'll clear my little situation up. But, you know, one of the things that I've done is I've intentionally, because when I had a job, I was making really big money, six-figure money as an IT engineer. And the thing about that, though, is I still live in a modest home. I live in I have very few bills. I don't have very much of anything. I did that on purpose because my philosophy is to live below your means. Because one thing about my philosophy is I understand that the only thing you can count on is change. You're not always going to have that high paying job, comfortable job. And when that hits, you at least want to be able to survive and eat. So thank God my philosophy worked out for me. So now I'm able to still make it and everything without all those luxuries. And it didn't cost me a thing. It doesn't matter to me. I don't live my life to impress people that don't like me anyways, right? So that's how I kind of function in life. But beyond that, I do think that there's a problem here, though. You know, I see myself as very able. I see myself as very intelligent. And I see a lot of potential with myself. But the little dumb things like car problems and home problems and getting the bathroom fixed and all of that while you don't have a job hinders me from being a more productive citizen. I could go out here and start a business. I've got ideas for businesses, things I want to do. I could help my community. I want to create like an entire system here where I can help people of like mind to thrive in their community. I cannot do that.
My language.
They won't let me. They denied me. They won't let me do any of it. Why? I can't pay the fees. I can't pay the taxes. I can't pay the things I need to pay. I can't do all the things.
That's the beautiful thing about SPEC. You can't have SPEC until you've got about 5,000 people. But if you can convince 5,000 people, and even if they just have one mission, which is to screw their local government out of everything that they possibly can, that's the one thing that they all agree on. And they're going to pull 90% of all of their earnings, not their resources, their earnings.
There you go.
It's a big difference, right?
I yield the floor to anybody else.
When it comes to
their one mission is going to be to use that collective money to replace their local government. Just get rid of them permanently.
Well, when it comes to getting rid of the local,
now you've got force of nature.
Robin, when it comes to getting rid of the local government, I'd like to introduce our new guest to the stage here. This is author J. Charles, goes by Life Abolitionist or Abolitionism. I can't remember now. I apologize. But somebody who I really enjoy interacting with. We had a great conversation on my channel about MAID, anarchy and antinatalism. And I do follow his channel when I have the time, which of course my time is limited. But yeah, definitely, Jay, introduce yourself. And then I'm sure you're going to have a lot to offer this conversation here when it comes to this.
Well, I'm actually familiar with Robin because I've been on Finding Gnosis' channel while he was there. I never had a chance to interact with him directly because D&W was just interviewing him and it was just a one-on-one. I've been trying to, I think I emailed you or something, or maybe it was, I commented on one of your videos. I was trying to, I don't know, talk to you more about your ideas, but I agree with what Scott said. The power to license is the power to destroy. The state already has far too much power. The American dream is not attainable for many people because the state crushes people. The fees, the occupational licensing requirements, the hurdles, the character and fitness requirements, it's just too much. And now we're discussing potentially giving the state even more power. I think the state has far too much power. We don't even own our lives. We don't really own our property. I'm not sure why anybody would be championed to give the state more authority. The state is running amok. I don't think the state has any authority to just seize. I think taxation is theft in the first place. So the fact that we already are being taxed is already a problem, and yet we want to increase taxes and give the state even more power. You really think that the state is benevolent, that it's going to use that power, is actually going to distribute that wealth fairly? No, they're not. Furthermore, I don't know which country you live in, but the state does not have any legitimate authority to do that. The state does not have any legitimate authority to tax you at 90%.
Which is why I know I can crush them.
There's nothing in the Constitution.
I can crush the state. Do you know why? Because the state is bully. They made up the rules that we live in now. I can be a bully or bullies. I made up better rules. I made up better rules than they made.
No, but you're creating a new state. You're just creating another.
We could literally destroy them.
No, then we would need to destroy you.
They might send the army in after us.
Then we would need to destroy you because you're going to become the new state. You're going to become the new oppressor.
No. Not me. SPEC would become the new state. And SPEC is just a system that allows local communities to interact with each other and invest in each other.
I have a question for you then. What if I don't consent?
That's all it is. It's a tool. SPEC is a tool.
What if I don't consent?
You don't have to. You don't have to. The government doesn't have to either. But if we get 70 million people in the UK that all think that it's a better way of doing things, I'd like to see our government stop us. If you in America got 200 million, if you in America got 200 million people all operating on their own separate SPEC nodes, using the same digital currency, all living by the same rules, and then those 200 million people said we don't want to pay our 30% to the government anymore.
But I think what
offer us a service.
Yeah, but I think
what they're going to do? Are they going to get your own army to try to coerce? Even though most of the army will probably join the SPEC system because they'll be getting a better deal than with their local government.
The problem is that you're trying to sell your ideas, so you actually have to address people's concerns. I mean, I didn't have a chance to talk to you on Finding Gnosis channel, but I do have very legitimate concerns, and I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to address all of them today. But you just said that once you get 70%, then it's going to be tyranny the majority. You're saying that I don't have to consent to it, but once you get enough people to buy into it, then my consent is going to be no longer relevant. You're just going to take 90% of my money. And
no, never. It's a contract. SPEC is a contract. You literally have to come in with your official government ID and you have to sign a contract to agree to their rules, to SPEC's rules, to respect other SPEC members. And then you get given a card back, which is unique to yours with a single number, which makes you a member of the community. Before that point, you're not a member of SPEC.
But you just said that the wealthy are not going to like giving 90% of their money, but I guess it's going to benefit them anyway because they're still going to be wealthier than everybody else.
They're still going to be richer than the poor.
But why would they do that? Why would they do that unless it was done through force?
The reason that they would do that because they'll realize that, like I told the story about the McDonald's. If you've got 5,000 people in the SPEC community and the people in McDonald's say, we want you to pay us X amount per hour. And McDonald's go, no, we're going to pay you the minimum wage. It's what we do all over the country. Then those SPEC workers go, well, what if I get 700 other SPEC members to open up something that's very similar to McDonald's and we all go and work there? And we sell it cheaper than you can because it's subsidized by our 90% taxes until we've completely destroyed you in this local area. Or you can just pay us more. It's collective bargaining. When you've got collective bargaining with millions of people, that collective bargaining becomes overwhelmingly powerful.
Okay, so I get what you're saying. You're talking about worker co-ops and you're talking about mutualism. I can wrap my head around that. The part that I can't wrap my head around is the taxation part. That I have to give 90% of my money.
There is absolutely no organization. Well, first of all, it's 60%. The other 30% is the 30% that the American government is already stealing from you. But At least SPEC makes you the promise that it will just try to destroy the American government that's been stealing from you if it gets the opportunity. The American government will just steal your money and hope that they can steal more tomorrow. SPEC
So how
tries
do
to
you
make the
identify
promise.
politically? Are you a socialist? Are you an anarchist?
No,
I mean,
I'm a
you're talking
SPECist.
about dismantling the state, so sounds very anarchist to me.
I'm a SPECist. I believe that if human beings stop being selfish and work together for the common good, things will be commonly good. If everybody works against each other and competes with each other, life is going to be one long battle.
But I just want to
win.
clarify something. Is your goal to dismantle the state?
Yes.
Okay, so that makes you an anarchist.
No. That makes me a SPECist. I want to replace them with a better system. It has rules. Everybody has to play by those rules.
Yeah, anarchy does not mean that you can't have
anarchists
rules.
play by no other rules.
No,
but
what
their
you're
own.
talking about
I
is an
might be the
anarchist
anarchist,
system.
but all members of SPEC will be members of SPEC. I'm not SPEC. My opinions are not SPEC's opinions. SPEC is a system for communities to financially interact with each other in a way that they can trust each other. I might be an anarchist. I might be. SPEC isn't. SPEC is literally a way that communities can protect themselves from outside entities. That's all it is.
But if you're talking about mutualism, voluntarism, and worker co-ops, that's anarchy. Or I mean, that's just. I'm not trying to like throw shade or anything because my philosophy isn't original either. I sort of synthesize other philosophies and put it together. And yeah, that's just anarchy. It's just repackaged. It's the same. I mean, I know you're.
Do anarchists pay taxes?
Not voluntarily. We don't. No, we don't
SPEC
support paying taxes.
There you go. There goes your anarchy thing. SPEC's not anarchy. People have to pay taxes. If you don't pay in, you're not a member.
No, we believe in voluntary contracts, like what you're saying.
Yeah, but the voluntary contract is to pay taxes.
Well, yeah. If you decide to,
the anarchist is the anarchist is you leave me alone, I leave you alone.
But that's what
I ask nothing from you. Anarchist is I ask nothing from you. You ask nothing from me. I do what I want to do. You do what you want to do. SPEC isn't that. SPEC is we all work together to destroy the people that we hate most, which is the IRS. We want to crush them. We want to crush the Central Reserve. We want to. That's what it is. It's groups of people, poor people, working together to get a bigger piece of the pie.
Okay, I'm going to let somebody else speak because I don't want to dominate, but I would be interested in talking to you more on my channel because I do have more questions. And did you say that your book was?
LA my email address?
And did you say that your book was available on your web, or where is it?
It's available on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want me to, if you give me, Robin, if you give me permission to, I do have LA's email address. If he wants, I'll go ahead and forward your email address onto him. LA, do you want me to do that?
Yeah, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And I'd like to, I sent you an email.
LA, I'll send you a free copy of my book too. Straight up.
Robin, hold on a second, Robin. Let me get Dark Light up here for just a second. But LA, I posted a comment to you. I don't know if I sent you an email because I've got a few different emails out there, but I definitely want to get together with you again. If you're up for it and have a conversation about those natural rights. And I think that's a really interesting conversation to have if you're interested. So before you go, let me talk to you a little bit about, see if you want to set something up. Dark Light, you got the floor. Introduce yourself. Tell people about your ideas and what you think about what's happening here with this spec.
Hey, Dark Light.
What up, Robin? I've ran into Robin a couple times over on Finding Gnosis. And I just got a couple things to add. One, I do appreciate that you are trying to come up with alternative systems. You know, that's at least starting a conversation about creating alternative systems, which is what we need. And I absolutely agree with you that if we do not do something, we are on the course for self-annihilation as a society. So something must be done. I agree with you as far as that goes. One thing though, you got to let people talk, because like as a listener, I'm back there listening, and my homie Daniel was giving me the floor the whole time, and as soon as he started pushing back on you just a little bit, you came talking over him. I understand you're very passionate about this, and it is worthy of the passion. But in order to have the most efficient and effective conversations, we have to give each other the space to air out all of our ideas. So I understand that, you know, while he's pushing back on you, you have some counters to his pushbacks, but you just got to take mental notes or written notes and just wait for whoever to lay it all out on the table. And then, you know, it's your turn. You can come back and address every single point. And I'm just saying that as, you know, because this shit has to get worked out, and it takes people like us talking about it, trying to work out different ways. I didn't agree with everything you said, but the one thing I really agreed with was that you are trying and you're passionate about finding alternate ways. So one of the biggest things that I saw is I'm with LA. I don't like taxes. Okay, there should be no taxes that are forced upon people. So that's actually the biggest thing that I have with taxes is every single tax that you pay should be 100% voluntary, a totally democratic tax system where everyone, you are not forced to pay any taxes, and that way whatever taxes you do pay are taxes that you want to pay, and that will introduce a democratic tax system where there's no taxes being demanded, or I mean, because honestly, so any taxes that you do pay are willful, and that way you have the people democratically voting with their dollars exactly where they want their tax money to go. Because that was just one of my big things that I was thinking as I was listening. And it's good to see you again, man. It's been a while. I've been working on my book. It's a 3-volume book. Each volume is going to have about 1,000 pages in it. This book's going to change the world. In my 3rd volume, I'm going to be covering all kinds of different propositions to help society as a whole. And I would definitely like to talk to you behind the scenes about your ideas. I don't agree with every single thing you said, but I do agree with a solid half of it, you know, and I can tell you put a lot of solid thought into this. And people like you are people that I would like to talk to about with some of the systems that I'm developing. And I try to keep it short and sweet and get right to the point with everything. So that's pretty much what I got. I appreciate you, Daniel, for hosting these conversations. Daniel is always super polite with everyone. And I just want to let you know, Robin, as a listener, as a viewer, we have to give everyone room to talk, to air their ideas out, because when 2 people are talking over each other, that's interference, and then no one can understand what either one of them is saying. So that's all I had. But I mean, I'll stay on here and keep the conversation going, but that's just what I had on top of mind right there.
I did have a question for Robin. I was just thinking about like, you know, how AI, like I've been talking about this for years and people thought I was on a fringe, but now everybody's like, you know, you were right. This AI stuff really is growing. And it's like, you know, AI tends to help, like when you think about potential to increase productivity, like automating repetitive tasks or assisting professionals in medicine, education, or engineering, or a lot of stuff like optimizing logistics and manufacturing. All this sort of enables one worker to produce what several workers once produced. And this could partially offset labor shortages. But, you know, there is that danger, like AI could create problems like unemployment or underemployment could rise, or income inequality could widen, or wealth could become more concentrated among those who own the AI system.
Man owns the AI, owns the world. That's it.
Yeah. And so, you know, you think about stuff like UBI, like a way to offset those losses by paying a robot tax, like Andrew Yang sort of talks about on his website. Like he's thinking of like some kind of UBI, or actually he's evolved from UBI. He no longer talks about UBI. He talks about HBI.
Because he realized that UBI won't work.
And he's talking about now like a higher wage for everybody rather than just a basic income. It's like a universal HI. That's what he's talking about. But I'm just wondering, how does SPEC resolve that problem or address the whole AI issue?
Well, objective ethics came up with the first half of it. I don't know if you were at the beginning of the program. He said that he lived in a community in Canada that was completely isolated, and they could look after most of their own needs. They could grow food, they had space, they had land, they could grow food, they could do independent projects, and it's a really nice way to live, you know. And you run into this problem that now you're going to need to buy something from somebody that doesn't know you or your community, and so you're going to need to have some way of getting goods from outside, further away from your community. So you need to create a form of currency inside your community that people will respect and understand. Yeah. Now, I understand not wanting to pay taxes, and ultimately, I believe that SPEC would be the vehicle by which that could happen, but not in our lifetimes. But,
okay, so for that AI question I posed, are you saying that you're kind of pointing to like a more communal living, where a community kind of isolates itself from the global commodity or modern technology like AI? No, that it could gain certain advantages? What are you saying?
No, what I'm saying is that SPEC would actually, each and every SPEC community would build its own AI system.
Own data center or whatever.
One to keep the ethics of SPEC straight. You know, it would be a machine backup for the rules of SPEC. Secondly, it would automatically oversee the flow of cash, how much money is in the vault, how much is, where the money is being invested. Why there would be human counterparts to that, but they would use AI to make their job more efficient, better, and faster. Because the less people the community has to employ to make sure that their money is being looked after and things are being fair and there's no corruption, the better it is for the community. Because they can save money. They can save money.
Where might these communities find like energy for these data centers? You know, they need so much energy. Are you saying like they could be situated next to like a huge water resource or some sort of way?
Ideally, my first SPEC community ever would be in right here, and I put it in my book. There's a place here in the UK called Caterham. It's Greater London. And they would create what I call a buddy system with a village called Jayswick, which is about 100 kilometers up the road. And because Jayswick is too poor to set up a SPEC exchange themselves and all of that, Caterham being quite kind of rich, if they sponsored them, then even the poorest community in the UK could set up their own SPEC exchange. Once the SPEC exchange has been set up, it's all uphill from that point. The community will just get richer and richer, and the community pot will grow.
I understand that. I understand the logic on it, and I understand basically what you're saying is that's what's going on anyways. It's going on within our existing government infrastructures. Everything is going AI. Like there's even in China, there's entire cities run by AI where they just
there'd be a big difference between a SPEC AI and the government. The government AI will be specifically designed to track your every movement so that it can find ways of squeezing every penny out of you that you will ever make and completely control your life. The SPEC system AI will be built like people like me that purposely want to destroy the government. They'll have to swear an oath. Like if they're going to build, I'm going, you're going to build my AI. Before you do that, you have to swear me an oath. This AI will find the most efficient way of destroying the government system that we live under. Otherwise, you don't get the job. So the SPEC AI will be created for the people, by the people, to screw over their big government.
So my initial
one AI system that's SPEC, that wants to screw over big government, and then you've got the big government's AI that wants to screw you over.
Well, my initial reaction to what you just said is that's cool. Okay, let's take that serious. Okay,
I take everything serious.
Here's the thing. With every movement, whether it be a terrorist movement or anything, from a religious group or whatever, you're going to have to get your support from those in the system. So like a terrorist would get, millions of dollars for weapons and planning, and they'll get that from. Right. So my whole thing is, fuck the government. Don't look for government support. But what you would have to do is you would have to align yourself with very rich people out here, like an Elon Musk or a huge person like that, because you're competing with the government.
It's good to have billionaires. It's good to have billionaires. I love billionaires. If I could get all of the world's billionaires to say that SPEC was the best thing since sliced bread, your opinion would be almost irrelevant.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, it would seem like the move to make would be the next thing for you would be to find alignment with those who have the resources for the data centers and for the infrastructure for these communities, and to implement all of these.
I did the calculations. I can literally build SPEC for the place called Caterham, and it would cost £26,000.
Wow.
I could borrow that money myself. Plus, the British government would fund the project. That's why the book is so important. On this program with you guys, I can say I want to destroy the British government and all of this stuff. My book is all friendly hand-holding, la 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 language, equality, and all of it's true. None of those things I want to destroy the government. The people that would have watched Jack Talcott's show the other day, which is why I came on, I wanted the world to know, I've got a personal grudge against the British state. They tortured me when I was a kid, and I want revenge. Now, the best way that I can see of getting revenge is by ostracizing them, making sure that they've got no friends, so that all of us move away from them slowly but surely. But the only way that we can do that, why we gather forces and we gather, we've got to pay them, because if you don't pay the IRS, they'll come after you as an individual, not as a group. So they'll take out the strongest of us under the excuse that we're not paying our taxes. But if we pay our taxes and we just create a community fund for local people that do community projects, when we're strong enough and there's enough SPEC communities, probably not in my lifetime, then we move. Then we start when, well, you don't pay for our schools, you don't pay for our power, we maintain our own roads, why are we giving you money? And then
what's preventing you? What is preventing you?
You mind if I jump in here, Scott, real quick?
Oh, yeah, go right ahead.
Just 2 quick points. I think this is all really interesting. Robin, I'm seeing two disconnects here. Earlier, and I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just trying to put all this together in my own head here, okay? And I also want to say really quick while I have the microphone, Dane, thank you for your comments. Very intentional, very, very productive, and just helping the show flow smoothly, because that is one of the issues that I run into is when people are over talking each other. We're trying to actually provide a product or service, right? Because we're on social media. And if the listener can't understand what people are saying, we're all just wasting our time, right? And my time is frankly very valuable to me. So when it comes to this, what you're saying at the beginning of this conversation, I was like, well, you're ultimately relying on the exchange of goods and services, which are linked to a global economy. And you're acknowledging that, but now you're telling me that you want to destroy these external governments, which ultimately destroys their economic viability.
Governments don't create economies. Ordinary people like you and me, we create economies. Governments don't create anything.
Governments build the substrate that these economies function within. So you cannot destroy the government without destroying the economy.
No,
those dollars that say "In God We Trust" and the Federal Reserve or whatever is printed on your money, you cannot destroy that without affecting the value of that dollar on one hand. The other issue I see is that you're talking about tearing down a government that you don't like. And I appreciate that you don't like it. And I am sorry for the personal experiences that you've had, very traumatic. And my heart does go out to you, brother. And I mean that sincerely. I think the government has done a lot of damage to a lot of people. And I'm not trying to minimize your story, but I just think in general, there's been a lot of shitty things governments do to the citizens, as well as to other governments in other countries. So I definitely see a problem there. However, it seems like you're just tearing something down to build something back up that I don't see as being sustainable, because we talked about you needing this external exchange. So I'm just there's so many disconnected pieces here, and I'm just confused as how these are supposed to actually come together. So if
we rewind, you said that you can't have an economy without a government. That's not true. First, we had an economy.
I didn't say you can't have no. I didn't. Hold on, brother. Hold on. That's not what I said. I didn't say you can't have an economy without a government. That's what I said. Is the current economies are tied to the current governments.
Okay.
That's
yes. Yeah. Which is why we can't all say we won't pay taxes tomorrow. Even if that was possible, there's only a few people that would be brave enough to actually do it. It'd be the situation where you'd have like 100 friends and you're like, yeah, we're going to get out on the street and we're going to tell the government we're not going to pay taxes. Right? And then when it comes to going out, 99 of your friends are gone and it's just you standing. So basically, you can't do that, which is why I use SPEC as a vehicle. I use SPEC. First, we give the government, we play friendly until we become strong enough. And then we go, well, we think that we pay you too much. We're going to reduce it this year and then next year and then the year after that. And then who the hell are you anyway? Because without all of our money, the government's nobody. That's just it. We literally give them the power. And they say, oh, but we work for you guys. They don't work for us guys. I don't know who they work for, but they don't work for me. Right? So, but how they manage to keep power over me is by controlling my money. They take half of everything that I will ever make. They take it away from me and spend it on things that I don't want them to. SPEC won't do that. That's why SPEC is a better system. Yes, it's going to take half of everything you ever make away from you, but it's going to give you more autonomy about how that money is spent. And like I said, who knows, in 100 years' time, SPEC communities will go, well, can we just not pay any taxes at all? Or can we pay taxes on a purely... But first we have to break the worldwide monopoly that we've got now, the exploitative, extractive, lying, scheming, conniving, horrible people that we've got in power. First we have to break them, and SPEC is a good way to do it.
So let me ask, is it easier to create an entire new system, or is it a more effective strategy? Could be like a combination, like create new models that demonstrate alternatives, but you're still engaging with existing institutions to scale those advantages easier.
Like I said, I need the British government to cooperate with me on its own demise. I can't destroy them without them helping me. But as soon as I've got one SPEC pilot scheme up and running, and people realize that even though you give away 90% of everything you earn, your standard of living is still improving every single year. There are less and less unemployed people. There is a very low accounts of people that have got substance abuse problems. And not that we care that you use drugs, but when you using drugs becomes a problem for the rest of your community, now it's a problem. So now we need to look after you. So there'll be the resources to look after the people, get them back onto the straight and narrow, stop the drugs. So basically, I believe that just one pilot scheme of SPEC, which may never happen in my lifetime, of 5,000 people, will actually prove that the system is so well thought out and works so well for the people that other people will want to join it. That's what I believe, anyway.
Since we've got a new person joining the stage, let's let Chris Moore introduce himself. And then, Chris, do you have any comments on what we've been talking about? And then Dane hasn't been able to talk in a while. I'd like to get him back involved in the conversation as well. So, Chris, you go ahead and go. And then Dane, after Robin responds to Chris, you're up next.
Well, if we're talking about AI, we're basically at the point where, like, the whole thing about AI that's not scary. Well, that's scary is that how well, it's just like right now is that there is not a. It's not the. If you go through the other scenarios of doomsday, like doomsday scenarios, which involve AI, it's not the. It's not the Terminator style of thing because it's not just a press a button and all that the like all we're all cooked. It's just the fact that right now, essentially, they're basically building a code and actually data centers is essentially well, some people don't really on their face don't really get that, but it's just that it's essentially inert at that point. It's just that we have vectors of uh, when AI decides to jump into our physical reality, and like say, like the advanced robots that we're just kind of doing that right now on a separate branch of technology. That is what's basically is like somewhat scary to that point because it's one thing, and I'm ripping off the like science fiction and also video games over here, but it's just that right now we are somewhat absurdly lucky to still have a disconnect between the physical and the and, and the computing mind, the quantum realm of what the computer software exists.
Can I highlight to everybody what the real problem with AI is? And most people won't realize this. So what I'm about to say, you actually haven't heard anywhere before. At the moment, we pay these people that we call the government, and we call these people, what do they call them? The civil service in England. We pay these people enormous amounts of money to not work for us and create systems that don't work for us. Soon enough, they won't even be doing the work, and AI is going to be doing that work. And because they're too lazy to even do their job now that AI doesn't exist, they won't do their job when it does. So basically, we'll be paying all of those same people enormous amounts of money for a machine to do their job for them that doesn't work anyway. And basically, the machines would have already taken over. Plus, it will allow our government to get away with even more crap than they already do. So they'll be living it up. Now they have to pretend to work. Once there's an AI, the AI will do all of that for them. Meanwhile, all of the world's billionaires will own those AIs, and those AIs will start telling each and every one of us what we can and cannot do 24 hours a day. And now the billionaires won't even have to do any work. It's just going to be the AIs, right? Now they're going to start automating things in the factories. So the big employers, they won't need us anymore, and they won't do any. So the AIs are going to be doing all of the work. But the people that have the power now, that pretend to do all the work, they're still going to have the power, and they're going to have way more time to make our lives as miserable as they possibly can because they'll be doing even less work. That's the real danger of AI.
I don't think you are basically going way off the ballpark of what I'm trying to say, but that's neither here or there because it's like what I'm trying to explain is a very nuanced conversation that involves multiple literatures, and I'm not trying to diss the fact that I'm one of the younger part of the group here, and most of that, but it's just that how I interpret the what was in a book or a thing, or the storytelling of it and its explanations, and how I get to those conclusions is through basically storytelling of video games and TV. And I know that it's probably something of a joke to you guys, but it's not like I said. The difference between now is that the realms are not connected. The realms of physical, the influence of AI right now is essentially inert to harm humans unless it's in a very specific way in a specific circumstance. Because it's a very different thing from when you like. What I'm trying to say is that essentially right now it's a good thing that most of us don't have implants, like neural implants, like up to the wazoo and stuff like that, because then you can have AI basically fucking within your own body, and we're onto something else. But hey,
Well, I
yeah.
would push back a little bit, Chris, and just let you know, because I look at all this. I'm one of these consciousness people, so I'm interested in AI, obviously, for that. But if you look at this stuff and really look at the facts and statistics that I've went over, the scary thing is that AI-driven layoffs have already impacted hundreds of thousands of workers. Like, it's been cited that we've lost over 54,000 jobs and just in 2025, and at least 87,000 cuts in the US during the first 5 months of 2026. And it's just growing. Like right now, if you
I'm
look
not
at the graph,
arguing it, by the way.
yeah, I understand, but I'm just that when we say it's kind of inert or it's not really causing suffering of people, that's kind of debatable. At least you may
And soon
risk.
enough, your government will put robot dogs out on the streets. If unemployment gets high enough, they'll put robot dogs outside on the streets to threaten you because they're cheaper than paying somebody to do it.
Yeah,
Like I
it would
said,
not surprise me.
our
None of
governments
that.
will see us all dead unless we do something now. And we've got a tiny window. This
Yeah.
next 20 years is going to be pivotal.
Well,
If we
this
do
this
not do
conversation is
something,
getting
if we do
really
not
spread out. Robin, this
we're
is
done
getting
for.
really spread out with AI and economics, politics. We talked a little bit about ethics. I mean, it's all tied together here, and I want to try to keep it somewhat linear. I also want to give my brother Max Stout a chance to have the stage as well, introduce himself. But Max, before I let you go, and I hate to do this to you here and now, but this is the first opportunity I had to speak with you. You and I have to clear the air about something. The last time that I had a conversation with you is I left a comment on your channel. I said that nobody can or will respect themselves more than other people will respect you more than other people. How did I say that? I'm trying to remember. It was a long time ago. I said nobody can or will respect you more than you respect yourself, right? And you responded by saying that I think that I can never be wrong, that I think I'm always right. And I said, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. I've never said that. I didn't say that in this comment. I've never said that. And in front of all these witnesses here, every single person on this panel, everybody in my chat will tell you that I've said a number of times that I believe fallibility is a virtue, that I've never, ever in my lifetime said I cannot be wrong. So I didn't appreciate you saying that about me or to me. And I just want to clear the air about that really quick, and then we can move on.
Okay, why don't you find the clip of that? Because I don't remember telling you that you cannot be wrong or think that you're never wrong. You definitely are, and maybe you've admitted it. But I remember you saying something about relationship. It was a comment about a relationship. And
yeah,
those type of virtues and that. So I don't remember anything about me telling you about what you just said with that scenario. So if you find that scenario and you clip it, just send it to me. We're connected on email and I'll listen to it and I'll respond to that. But as far as I remember, the last thing that we didn't agree on was you making a comment about relationships, and I was saying it's wrong. So it wasn't about you not ever being wrong or you saying you cannot be wrong. If it is, then send me the clip. That's exactly what I would let you know.
Yeah, and hypothetically, because I know it is. That's. I was quite offended when you said that. So had
See,
you have said
shouldn't get
that, let's say
offended.
hypothetically, do you?
Objective. The fact that, think about this, right? We're both getting older. Everybody's going to die. The fact that that lived in your mind for so long, and like I say to many others, without any respect or disrespect, is that for me it was just Tuesday or Wednesday or Sunday. You know, it may have stayed with you for some reason, but the reason that I would say is because maybe it's something that you got to work on. Because if it didn't have any relevance or affected or it wasn't true, you wouldn't have thought about it. People say things about me constantly. I'm pretty sure you've seen the channel in the last month. It's just been beef. You know, I got with a guy who has a much bigger channel. He appreciated me, loved all my productions, and then one disagreement and he started crying and he started making videos actually slandering. And I was okay with that because criticism shows us our character. And when I saw that, I said, wow, this guy is running a grift. I wouldn't have looked into it if I didn't if I didn't get so much like feedback from people. And he did me a favor. I mean, he came on the show, he streamed my stream. But then that disagreement, which anybody can look at about looking at things from different perspectives, must have bruised his ego. And myself, I wasn't smart enough to realize that I bruised his ego. I found out like 2 or 3 streams after. Guys were like, yeah, he already made 2 streams. I saw on the second stream. So I was like, okay. I said, I'll address the numbers and the stuff. And again, it's an insecurity within the person. Criticism is very important. If you can't let it roll off your back like water off a duck's back, then you got to look at something with yourself, not with the person criticizing. That's like saying, hey, you better not criticize me. Now, whether somebody says what about you is right or wrong, it doesn't matter. What matters is how you take it. And that's what it is.
I disagree with everything you said there, brother. First of all, I think it's really important that we focus on respect and we focus on truth as much as possible. So I'm willing to have a respectful conversation and say, hey, look, this is what you said. I didn't appreciate it. And for you to try and throw it back at me and say, well, it's my problem, I shouldn't take it seriously. I think words have meanings. We have this thing inside of us called empathy. So we feel each other's pain, and there's a reason for this, right? So you offended me by something you said that was demonstrably false, and it goes against my very character, something I actually do value. So I take that seriously. Now, you may not take it seriously, and you're more than welcome to see that as a weakness on my part and an inflation of my own ego. I can't tell you how to live your life. I see it as the fact that because I respect myself and because I respect you, I'm willing to have a respectful conversation about it. I don't see that as being a problem. Are you seeing that as a problem? Because it sounds like you're kind of running away here. Like, oh, it didn't happen. And if it did happen, it's your fault. It's your issue. Too bad for you. It's kind of what I'm.
What see, and this is the thing too. The fact that somebody's like, I think you just maybe weren't listening to what I just said about if it's affecting you, it says that you need to look at you a little. But you're not. You're constantly looking at me. You're saying, oh, it offended you, your ego. That's ego right there, 101. That's not my opinion. That's what you just displayed. Any psychologist can look at that and say, you have a serious ego problem because the man just explained to you and said, hey, email him the stuff. And it just went through one ear to the other.
No, I heard what you said, brother. I heard what you said. It did affect me. You're right. It did impact me. That's why I'm talking to you about it. That's why I'm talking to you about it, brother, because it did impact me, right?
And I'm saying look into that first. So to respond right now is prematurely on that subject. I came on because I saw 5 people watch. I just happened to catch it as I was setting up my stream, and I said, "Oh wow, Ethics is live. This is one of the few times I catch him." I figured I'd come on for a little support, but if this is the way you feel, man, it's cool. I'll look and I'll wait for your email. I'll check the timestamp and listen to it, and I'll respond to you on email. Or if you want, or you can come on, or I can come on and I can respond. Whichever you feel is better for you, then you just let me know in the email.
Fair enough. Well, I'm glad we kind of got that aired out a little bit, so it's at least in the air. We can maybe deal with that at a future date. As far as that goes, though, you're welcome to join us. You want to talk to Robin about SPECman, or I don't know if you caught the whole show, or kind of know.
No, I just caught like the last when he right before Chris spoke. that's when I caught like maybe 5 minutes of Robert saying I didn't really understand it, and then it went straight to Chris, and then Scott said something, and then you introduced me.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack that you're going to be out of the loop on, but because of talking about spec, it's Robin's kind of very interesting, I would say very unique approach to kind of restructuring government, restructuring an economic system that's self-sustaining and inclusive within a group.
Restructuring local communities that gives them the power and the resources and the organizational skills so that they can take on their governments.
Are you in America or the UK or Australia?
I live in the UK, but my system, it's a human-based system. It works on how humans think, feel, and do. So it would work in any nation.
Okay, so you're saying that you think the government should give that to the communities, to the villages or towns, right?
No, I'm saying that I found a way for communities to give that to themselves.
And how is
give
that?
Themselves structure by creating a community economic system with rules, checks, and balances that allows the community more easily to interact with each other, open up micro businesses, ignore big government, create better systems, gather vast amounts of funding to make themselves more stable. And maybe if enough communities over generations adopt that more self-sufficient way of being, eventually they'll have enough power to take on their own governments.
Okay, and now the way a government is run right now, what is the difference that you would say should be done? So like you're saying, give the communities the chance, the power. What would you change on how the government is run? Like you're saying, like, what are your options?
Well, the first thing that I would make every government official do is like a police officer. I'd make them wear a camera on their chest 24/7. When they're working, what they're doing is being filmed always. Every interaction that they have with everybody while they're on duty is filmed. Secondly, every single penny that they ever spend from the public purse, which is their entire wages, I would have it blockchained. Every time they use a public toilet, I want to know what they spend, when they spend it, to the second. There will be no private room meetings. There will be a camera on them 24/7, unless they specifically ask permission because it's something so sensitive that they don't want the Iranians to be able to watch it. Everything that concerns the people that they govern has to be transparent and in the open. Now, if they make a promise and they don't keep it, I expect them to get fined and fired, maybe put in prison. I want them to have full accountability for their words. If they say that they're going to do something, they have to do it or suffer some kind of consequences. And that's how I built my system. My system is built with those rules.
Okay, let's say they do that and then they don't get punished. How would you enforce the punishment?
I'm forgetting about them completely. I'm building my own system that is called SPEC so that we we get the power to actually just sidestep them, that they become irrelevant.
You know, when we don't listen to them, you know what they do, right? They send in the police, they send in the army if you defeat the police with weapons, right? So how?
Yes, but the only way to beat the tyrant is to make that they actually show the world what they truly are, which is the tyrant.
Okay, so we see that in all governments, we see the leaders are basically fitting the definition of what a tyrant would be, whether it be in disguise or in the open, right? All right, how do you propose to stop that tyranny if they say no? We don't want to hear what you got to say. We don't care about your opinion because that's what we see. The fact
I don't care about their opinions. As long as I get to make spec, as long as I get to do my.
What if they don't give it to you? That's what I'm saying.
And as long as I get the opportunity to prove that I can do better than they can, when we become the more numerous, then we can just ignore them. Anything they say isn't relevant to us because they don't do anything for us. That would be that. And government does very little for me right now, except start wars with nations that I didn't want them to. I'm one of those people. I could live without government. Government can't live without me.
Yeah,
Or
you're
you.
right about that. The government
their money is our money.
Yeah, they're a mafia posing as a human rights organization. But
Exactly.
the problem is, well, no matter what you say to them, I don't know if you've ever read The Art of War or
Sun Tzu.
yeah. All warfare is based on deception. So they will constantly try to convince you not to rebel. They'll create a thing called a vote and say that your vote matters. Meanwhile, it doesn't, So now the thing is we're in a situation where they have the guns pointed at us by other citizens. So it's the rich that have convinced the poor that other poor people are oppressing them, not the rich people. You see, so now this is the first so-called recorded generation, it's probably been for a few, that the offspring are not as smart as the parents. So lack of a better word, they're dumber than their parents. They're more stupid than the parents that gave birth to them. And now I'd say it's been happening for more than one generation, but this is solid scientific stuff.
Are
Anybody?
you talking about?
Yeah. But what do you say to people who would say that this is just more extreme cases of some red pill ideology? What do you say to that?
Well, that's a person that's been dumbed down. So you got to remember when we're seeing something, and
I'm not saying that. I think you're all super smart, and I think that if you just took the time to read my book, you'd all come around to my way of thinking.
I don't think anybody's no, Robin. I don't think anybody's accusing you of that, brother. Listen, you guys, we are at the 3-hour mark. I've got to get some dinner, and what I always like to do when I run the show is give every single person on the panel a chance to have an uninterrupted word, just so they can feel like they've had a chance to speak and everything and feel acknowledged. So I am going to start winding this down. Max, you were here last, so I'll let you go first. We'll just go back in reverse order, and I'll let you guys each have a chance. Max, you're welcome to plug your channel, tell people where they can find you. I'll make sure to get a link to your channel in the description of the video since you joined us today. Let me give you the floor here, and you can speak uninterrupted. Then we'll go to Chris, then Dane, then Scott, and then Robin. You can finish up as our guest today. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Max. You got the floor, brother.
Okay, I appreciate that. I do a lot of research on human origins and ancient civilizations. My channel is Architects of Humanity. I also talk about human issues, what's going on the planet. I have a lot of conversations, I would say, not debates, not arguments, but conversations so I can learn from them. And I appreciate people that like to have that too. So I came on, showed my support, and just wanted to let everybody know that, yeah, I'm still here supporting people.
Thank you very much. Good to see you, brother. You're always welcome to stop by. You know that.
Thanks.
And
man.
Next up on the well, at least I hope you know that. Yeah. Scott, or not Scott. Let me see. Chris, I think I said you're next. Chris, you've got the floor, brother.
Okay, I know that I've talked about AI and all that stuff, and that's a separate conversation. But in terms of the spec, I don't see the scenario the scenario covering of when the populace is essentially and depoliticized. And if you want to know about that, there on YouTube there is a guy called Vlad Vlexer and Vlad Vlexer Chats. He basically kind of does a breakdown of political psychology and stuff like that, and just kind of explains through the prism of the Russian basically oligarchy and stuff like that. So yeah, just kind of checking that out a little bit because that's probably be relevant to this issue anyway. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Chris. I always enjoy when you stop by. Better late than never. I was really happy when I saw you pop into the backstage there. I think next week you're gonna really enjoy that show. I don't know, since you were here so late, if you caught the intro, but I'm gonna be talking to a Muslim and a Catholic about happiness. So it's gonna be a wild show, brother, because I've been doing a lot of research on it.
Oh boy!
It turns out, according to the research, that the happiest countries, the happiest people, are in countries with the highest level of atheists per capita.
Yeah, that's gonna be a doozy.
Happiness for a Muslim is when he finally gets to drink a beer in heaven. That's when he's happiest.
I guess. I don't even know if that's how that works or not. But Dane, you're
That's
up
how
next.
that works. Apparently, you can drink as much alcohol as you want in heaven.
Well, they're
All you
looking
need
forward.
to do is die righteously, and those virgins and alcohol is yours.
Yeah, that word righteous is such a loaded word. All right, Dane, you've got the floor, family. It's great to have you here as always. Looking forward to our conversation in 2 weeks, I believe it is. Going to have you up here. You're muted. You're on mute.
That's the last Sunday of the month, right?
That's right.
Okay. So I did have a few things that I've been holding on to for a while. So I'm trying to get at the heart of the issues. And first and foremost, the very first thing that I started thinking when Robin started talking about his system is you have to be ever diligent, because governments will incessantly attempt to co-opt any sort of resistance or movement that is attempting to change their systems. And if it does happen to be a better system, they will undoubtedly try to infiltrate it and co-opt that system. So that is absolutely something that you would have to safeguard against. And there was quite a few things. There was a handful of things that I had, such as the AI thing, like all the not economic, but ecological concerns. So that's like, for one, AI is a tool. Okay. That's like saying the wheel. You know, we got the wheel over here, and you can use that wheel to either heal or kill. And so as far as the environmental issues, that is not specifically an AI issue. That is an issue based off of how the current systems choose to power their infrastructures. Okay, and that is nowhere near just strictly directed towards the AI sector, because you have the same pollution that is based off of, I call it the separation supremacist systems, because they do not work with the environment, they work against the environment. So you can absolutely have a system of AI that is, for one, independent and not centralized. You can have your own AI systems. Me personally, I do use AI. I've been using it to help me write my book. I come up with all the ideas, but it's been an excellent research assistant and writing partner. So there is absolutely utility to AI. There's a couple things, such as the AI taking people's jobs. That's not inherently a bad thing. That is freeing up manual labor, because anywhere there is a job freed up by a machine, that leaves a person that is available to do a different job. The jobs of the future will not be the exact same as the jobs of today, just like the jobs of today is not the exact same as the jobs that were available 100 years ago. So we have to take that into consideration. And so the biggest thing is looking out for the corruption. Any system can be corrupted. You can come up with the best possible system, and that system can easily be corrupted by people, elites attempting to game that system. Like capitalism, as it is in the books, is an excellent system. But what we have in America is not capitalism, because in capitalism, there is no such thing as too big to fail. But we have been living in this too big to fail quasi-capitalism for at least bare minimum 50 years, like ever since before I was born. And it's just gotten more and more evident as time goes on. So within true capitalism, if a business is not working or functioning or being profitable and productive, then that business has counted itself as deserving to fail. And that is not what we have been experiencing. And another important thing with the taxes, okay, so the American people, that we don't even realize, we have been paying so much taxes for the last 80 years or so, that we could very well right now be the pinnacle of modern society, with everyone having all their houses paid for, everyone having off-grid electric, But let me try to get to the heart of the matter. The systems are built on dependency instead of independency. So in order to counteract these systems as they are today, the best thing to do right off the bat is to reinitiate systems of independence. And you extend that to every single vector possible, one by one. And the biggest thing is getting people to change their minds. And another issue that Daniel is bringing up was about the monetary systems. A monetary system only has the power of the people that believe in it. Okay. And so I agree with some of the stuff Robin was saying. I disagree with some other stuff. But one of the things Robin was saying was creating a monetary system that is used strictly within a given society. Okay. And that's actually, you can lean into that. And instead of heavily taxing the fuck out of people, like 90% out of their income, you instead you can create an alternative monetary system where people voluntarily contribute, and with the contribution that they voluntarily input, that is proportional to the say that they have with the allocation of the funds. And I like the transparency that you were trying to instill in your systems. I would definitely like to talk to you private one-on-one sometime and go over some of your ideas more. I will absolutely try to get your book so I can be on the same page as you when I go over your systems. I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to agree with everything in it, but you're definitely onto some good stuff in there. And I probably had some couple other things, but that was like the most important stuff. I'm trying to get to the heart of some issues right there. So I was just sitting on all that for about 20 or 30 minutes, just waiting to get my chance. So I appreciate it, OE.
I'm sorry I didn't get to you sooner, brother. I'm just trying to kind of let things flow more organically, and time is starting to run to where it's getting to be. I try to keep the shows to 3 hours or less. And I appreciate. Hold on, Robin. Hold on, please, brother. Hold on. You're going to get a chance to speak completely uninterrupted and respond to everything that was said. But I do need to get this thing kind of wound down, and I need to get something to eat. But Dane, it's so good to have you stop by. I really appreciate your input, and I love your energy. I just think that you bring so much to the table when it comes to taking this outside perspective. I think you're passionate about it, but I think unlike a lot of people who are passionate about things, you actually do the work. And I'm really impressed with how much work you've put in. And I'm looking forward to having just a one-on-one conversation with you, because we've never really had that opportunity. There's always so much else going on. And so I am really excited about the show we're going to do together. And thanks for stopping by, brother. Okay, Scott, you're going to be up next.
Can I just address Dark Light for one thing?
Yeah.
I didn't disagree with one single word that you just said. Not one. You actually, you could have been speaking for me.
Okay, sorry, I got too many things going on. I got some employees trying to. I got to deal with that too now. God damn it. Am I even talking here? Okay. Scott, you're up next, brother. Shit's hitting the fan. I told him, I says, don't ever call me on Sunday. And I don't mean to be like that kind of a boss, but when I agreed to take the position, that was one of my rules. As I said, Sundays were just off limits. And for the most part, they're pretty good about it. Scott, you got the floor. Tell people where to find you. Anything you want to say about the conversation. Always so good to have you here, brother.
Thank you so much, man. Love being here always. That's why I'm a regular. And my channel is all about consciousness, non-duality. So I'm going to talk about everything related to consciousness, like free will, no free will, objective morality versus subjective morality, all things connected to consciousness of mind and things like that. At any rate, for the conversation, I really love as well. I really respect anybody who puts a lot of passion into their work to the point where they're writing books and coming up with systems and things like that. How can you hate on anything like that? Now, I know a lot of your pushback is going to come from people who just have a raw hate for any sort of collective sort of approaches to society. But the thing about that is that humanity is undoubtedly becoming a global hive anyways. Like, we've got the internet, global communication, artificial intelligence, scientific networks. So ideas like Global brain suggests that humanity may increasingly function as a connected information system anyways. And then you can parse out, networks within networks, kind of like what you're talking about with the communities that run by SPEC, as individual networks and systems that are within, sort of nested within the overall system. But the thing is, individuals do retain separate experiences. People disagree all the time. Cultures compete. Identity politics remain strong. So, I think humanity is becoming a more interconnected, intelligent network, period. And all of these other things happening. But the pushback you're going to get is because of this identity politics and people's value for separateness and, individuality, which is fine. And I think that you can find some sort of compromise there. So in either case, I think it's a great start. I don't know much about it, of course. I'd have to read the book and get to know it. So I can't really criticize too much. Just on face value, it seems to resonate with my values already. So I like it. I like it. And I'll yield the floor.
Yeah, Scott, I always appreciate when you bring something positive to the table, even if you have some constructive criticism to offer. And I agree with everything you said, Robin. It is just like I was saying about Dane. Dane has put in so much work into what he believes in, and that's really commendable, because I don't think a lot of people are willing to do the work. They focus on a very narrow viewpoint, and they'll pick and choose any bits and pieces that they just kind of grab along the way, but they don't really step back from the situation and actually put in the work to decide how efficacious is this, right? Is this belief system or whatever? And where are the holes that I need to actually plug up and stuff? And I think that Robin is absolutely put in it. He emails me at least twice a week with all these different, long emails that have so much in them that I can't even get to all of it. But it's clear that he's putting in a lot of thought to this, and I really appreciate that you acknowledge him for that. So, Robin, it was so nice to have you on the show today. I really appreciate that you were willing to engage with questions and handle the pushback in such a great way, because you understood that you're being respected and valued. Your time is being valued. You're not being criticized, but people do see things that they're going to have questions about. And I think you handled it very, very well today, and I just want to commend you for that. So you've got the floor. Tell everybody whatever you'd like to, where to find you, whatever you'd like to say.
I got covered so much today. The first thing I have to say to Darklight, you are the first person who has ever worried about a continuation plan and how that my system might want to be subverted by people with power. You're the only person to have brought that up, which is amazing, because if something is as good as I claim it's going to be, then there's going to be somebody that will try to co-opt it. Secondly, I'm on all of you guys' side. I believe that most of the people that are looking for answers are the people that want a possibility to feel that they've been more in control of their own life, their own finances, and I think the only way that we ever will be able to get the power back is first being able to work with each other, and then once we can work with each other, we won't have the same kind of opposition and enemies at the moment, because the governments that we have are our enemies. They do not want our communities to improve. They do not want our finances to improve. They just want to find cheaper and better ways to control us. I'm easy to find. I can be found at specometer.com. Specometer.com. It is my website. When you go on there, you've got instant access to all of my videos, all of my work, the link to my book. My book is free, by the way. My book can be found. It's called The Romance of Good Economics, Improving UK Financial Systems. And it can be found on Amazon. It's really easy to find, and it's 100% free. I didn't publish the book because I want to make money. I published the book because I want to find allies to help me destroy the world's government. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen.
That's great. I will make sure to get a link to that. I didn't know you had that going, so I will be sure to get a link to that. Put in the
Yeah, I
description.
mean, Dark Light. If you give Dark Light, you can give anybody my copy of my book. You know,
Yeah.
I'll send you the copy of my book. You can give it to Dark Light. It's a brilliant book. It's a masterpiece. I do need help.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll look into it, and I will make sure and get a link to that that website put up on the thing. I'd like to thank you.
SPECman.com. Yeah.
Yeah, I put it in the chat. Is this the correct spelling here in the chat? Can you see that?
I'll put it in the private chat.
Perfect. Get that while you're doing that, go ahead.
I just had one thing to say really quick is that when you actually sit down to write a book about something, that really forces you to examine all the holes, to examine all the pieces, and really think about all the details in a hyper-focused way that you wouldn't have if you did not write the book. So that's where I'm
saying that. Was I not saying that to you before the show, Objection Ethics? As soon as I'd write one thing, I'd find a problem with another thing. And that objection, he was saying that when he came up with his patterns, he had to go from the beginning back to the front. It's so true. Yeah, what you're saying is so true.
Yeah, and I would encourage anyone that has some strong ideas about stuff just to start writing it down and also exposing it to other people and being open to the criticisms, because for me, criticisms are a good thing, because I would not be nearly where I'm at right now if I was not willing to expose my ideas to the criticism of my intellectual peers.
Hey, man, you may want to look at publishing some articles in Substack and start gaining a follower there. I don't know if you're already doing that or not, but that would be a really good outlet to find support and people to be aware of what's going on. And then I agree with you, Robin, and I agree with you, what you just said, Dark Light. I wrote a book on non-dualism and idealism, and I ended up changing my fucking view because I started encountering all the holes in my view as I understood it then. And I had to really tighten down the batches and go over it.
I started my book to combat digital identity. And by the end of my book, I support digital identity. It's so weird. But if your local community controls the AI, the data center, they control the knowledge. Big government has to ask you for a warrant to look, right? If it's in your hand, digital ID, it can solve so many problems for you and your local community. And you don't have to put the power in those nasty, horrible oligarchs' hand. As long as we, the people, control our own information, we can use it for good. But those guys will only ever use it for evil and control.
Very good. All right, I'll go ahead and just give some closing thoughts here really quick. So just really appreciate everybody for stopping by. And just to make sure that in case Max is still listening, I'm not here to publicly shame you or embarrass you or anything like that, but I do believe in speaking directly to people and honestly with people and confronting issues, when they come up. And I confronted you in the chat directly. I hadn't had a chance to speak to you in person until just now. So I do appreciate that, that you, hopefully you will understand that just because that I see an issue or a problem and I'm willing to call it out, doesn't mean that I think you're a bad person. I don't have any ill will towards you. But I think misinformation is something that we need to address, right? And in particular, the reason that this comment that you made actually does affect me, because it goes against the policies of this channel. What I'm doing on this channel, and I think everybody who watches my channel and takes any time at all to listen to what's being said here, we value pushback. We consider infallibility to be a virtue, which is to say that we really don't think we can be 100% certain about anything. We're almost certain that certainty is impossible, right? And that's what we're trying to do here, is to bring people together to push back on each other's ideas, because we understand that we could be wrong. So when you said that I think that I can't be wrong, now you probably didn't take time to think about what you're saying, because we do this all the time. I know I'm guilty of this, right? Sometimes I speak without thinking first. And so we could say something that we just didn't mean. And so I appreciate, maybe you can look into it. If you want me to do timestamps, if I feel like I have the time or energy to get into it, I've said what I have to say about it. I don't necessarily know if I need to get into the whole timestamps and videos and spend a lot of time looking all that up, because I know that I didn't just make this up. I know it happened. I laid it out there for you. You can deal with it however you want to. If you have enough self-respect to address it, if you're concerned about it, you will. If you don't, you won't. As far as I'm concerned, the slate is clean, right? You and I are now on the same page moving forward, that whether you meant it or not, or it was something that just kind of slipped out, at least you understand moving forward that myself and this channel is built on fallibility as being a virtue. So we don't think anybody coming here that if you do think you can't be wrong about something, you're in the wrong place. That's not what this channel is about, right? We're here to bring people together with different ideas, to share different ideas and engage respectfully with each other, just like I engaged respectfully with you. And I encourage everybody to handle their confrontations in this way, right? As far as having Robin in the topic today, I really love Robin's passion. I'll just start by saying that. And just like what I said with Dane, I really respect the hard work that Robin has put into developing this system, right? You can clearly see it. If you saw half the emails, I mean, this guy, and I'm not saying that he's bothering me at all with it. I appreciate that he's sending me all this stuff because it shows me that he's putting so much work into it. I don't have time to go through all this stuff, frankly. So had I have gone through all of these emails, I probably would have been able to do a better job as the interviewer. And so that's my own fault, my own shortcoming, I will admit. But I think just being able to respond in real time, I think we got a good opportunity for Robin to kind of flesh out some of this and help us to see where potential observations and holes might be. Some of the holes that I see with the system, the way it was, presented today, there's a little bit of background noise here. I'm going to do that. So some of the things I see with the way they were presented today is it seems like we're basically taking one system, and this is what I see the problem with anarchy is. Anarchy is always a temporary state, right? Because as soon as you tear down the existing government, the very first thing that the anarchists do is build up a new government, which is why I'm not an anarchist, because I haven't heard an anarchist movement that actually has a plan in place for improving the existing system. It's just a different problem dressed up. It's the same problem dressed up differently, right? It's what we call, like I said before, I think with Robin, it's a difference without a distinction. And so I see SPEC as being somewhat of that. Now, if we were to be as generous as possible, and let's just say for a moment that we had this global SPEC plan, right? So we don't have to now worry about the problems of the global market. We're working with SPEC's market, SPEC living in a community that's also governed by an existing government system that has laws in place, taxes in place, and so on and so forth. Let's just imagine, to be generous, and say, let's say the whole world is functioning under this SPEC model, right? I do think that it has some potential because it is really based on community and equitability for everybody. And I really respect that. And I really think that that's where we should be moving towards. But I think it takes away too much personal autonomy from people because nobody can opt out because they would have nowhere to go in this global model, right? They'd have to fly to a different planet or something. And that's the problem. What if people don't want to go with what the majority thinks is we should be building this community center over here, or maybe we'll want to put up a statue over here, and the majority of people say, yeah, let's use our SPEC money for this. And then there's some people who say, no, I don't want that statue over there. That's where we have, this park we should be putting in for the kids or something, but I'm in the minority. I don't have a choice, or I don't want to give up 90%, or if there was global, you'd only be giving up 6. Well, you would still be giving up 90% because that 30% is just going to the government, the SPEC government. So it's still 90%. What if I say, no, I don't really want to give up 90%. I'm willing to give up 70% or whatever. Well, you have no choice. And when we take away personal autonomy from people, well, that just, in my opinion, it ends up leading into the corruption that we're already in right now, taking away people's personal autonomy. The type of global system that I would like to see is not based on a global economic system or a global government or a global religion or a global social agenda. In fact, I think we need diversity around the globe because it helps us to see where the holes are. The only globalization that I support is cooperation. When I talk about objective morality, now this conversation gets really muddled up because when people talk about objective morality, you have two aspects. You have the ontology, like the foundation, the grounding of the whole thing. And then you have the normative, right? Why ought we do what this or ought not do that, so on and so forth. Those two different conversations. If we focus on the teleology of it, right? Helping us to achieve a goal. I ought to do this because it helps me to accomplish my goal. If that goal was cooperation, And remember, we are a social species, so it's part of our nature as human beings to cooperate with one another. So let's imagine for a moment that 10 people agreed to cooperate with each other. If within that group of 10 people, there would be no need for war, no need for lying or cheating or stealing or assault or coercion. There wouldn't even be any need for money, frankly, because we're in cooperation with each other. If we expand that thought experiment to 100 people, right, does the logic still hold? It does, in fact, still hold. Complexity adds. The more people we add a complexity to it. But that doesn't refute the axiomatic principles, because cooperation is still holding in this thought experiment. If we expand that thought experiment to everybody on the globe, there would literally be no wars on earth, no famine, no poverty, no lying, no stealing, no need for attorneys, nothing, because we would all be cooperating with each other. And this is how we can get our objective moral principles, these oughts. Oughts are actions that lead to a goal. The specific goal would be cooperation. If we were to globally accept this goal of cooperation, we can get objective moral facts that help us to accomplish this goal. And why would we select this goal? Because goals are going to be subjective, right? All value judgments are subjective. Why would we think we would be motivated as a person to select this goal of cooperation? Because at a fundamental level, the very nature of what it means to be a human being, we're a social animal. It's part of our nature to cooperate with one another. So when we start fighting each other, when we start shooting missiles across the ocean at each other, we start taking each other's, robbing banks and coercing people and essaying, all these terrible things that people do, they're actually going against their very own nature. They are robbing themselves of their own happiness, their own self-respect, and literally going against the nature of what it means to be a social species, of which they are a member. They cannot get away from that, right? So if we want to stay within our nature, that would be the path of least resistance. We would actually live our best lives by staying within our nature, which is to cooperate. So that's the argument that I would make for globalization, is based on cooperation, not on a single government or a single religion or irreligion or whatever. That stuff, we need to have this diversity so that we can compare these different ideas and see what really holds up, right? And we also need to celebrate this diversity because it's what makes life wonderful, right? Different ideas. So I think that's probably as much as I can say at this point. I just want to hit this one more time because where is this button? I think it's so neat that Gio, thank you so much for sending that to me. I really appreciate you and for sending this as well. Thank you everybody for stopping by.
Channel. 3.30 for repeating, of course. That's better than I've done before. And Deacon Brennan, Willard, what do you do? Just wait, objective ethics will be on your plate.